oval. Now, there's a line in...
Actually, if I may interrupt you there, since we're talking about the quartet.
Sure.
In my view, the West Indian pace quartet wouldn't have existed but for the Indian spin quartet, in my view.
Now, that is a very interesting thought. To explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. If you go back to 1975, 76 and the Australia series where Thomson essentially made Clive Lloyd realize what fast bowling could do. And then we come to 1976, Vishen Bedi's team goes to the West Indies and on a Port of Spain pitch which is taking spin, Lloyd declares and loses the match in the fourth innings. And what does he do? From the next test onwards, he virtually never ever picks a spinner. And that's, I think these two things combined brings in his pace quartet strategy in place. So in some ways, Tiger Pataudi bringing in the spin quartet strategy, saying that this is what my strength is, so why would I have pace bowlers on my side, is replicated somehow, mirrored, if you like, by Lloyd, by saying, I don't need spin bowlers, I have pace bowlers.
Well, that's one of the other interesting things. This book has been written in a time when India is unusually rich in seam bowling talent. If I think of the likes of Jasprit Bumrah, for example. But now there's a line from a conversation that you had with Australian cricket writer Mike Coward, and it really grabbed me, and I wanted to sort of have a little dig about it. What he said was, it's undeniable that ground pitch and weather conditions in India have traditionally suited the development of fast bowlers. But, he says, so too, spin bowlers, yes, I beg your pardon, development spin bowlers. But, he says, so too has the Indian character, even in temper, patient, stoic and respectful. What do you think he really meant by that? Because I can think patient, stoic, respectful. As an Australian, I'm not seeing Shane Warne when I hear those words. So what? So what is it? What is it that is there something about the Indian character as a nation that breeds spin bowlers, or is it just about conditions?
I think it is about the character, not just the conditions. Well, I mean, Shane Warne would be Shane Warne because he's Aussie and there is no other way he could be. So whether he'd been a fast bowler, whether he'd been a spin bowler, Shane Warne would be Shane Warne. He couldn't behave any other. But if you were to generalize, I think as a spin bowler, you need patience. You need to be always thinking. You need to be stoic because you're getting hit all over the place. You're bound to get hit all over the place, right? There's going to be a Vivian Richards out there who's going to try and hit you out of the attack, right? So if you're Vishen Bedi and you get depressed by that, it's never going to work. So I think there's no point in a spin bowler wasting their time and energy in arguing with batsmen, for example, or sledging. If you want to be a successful spin bowler, in my opinion, and this, I've spoken to a lot of spinners, right, and I think they agree more or less with this. Leave the aggression to the captain. So leave it to a Ganguly, leave it to a Virat Kohli, right?
Yeah.
As a spinner yourself, if your style requires you, like for example a Bedi or a Prasanna, to somehow buy your wickets, then do that. Okay? Don't worry about it. You still need to flight, you still need to spin, and you need to prevail over the batsman. And I think that's somewhere the story which I tell in Wizard, which I actually absolutely love, and this is a story that Ian Chappell told me about Prasanna and Gavin Robertson, the Aussie spinner. So Prasanna was brought to the nets by Ian Chappell on an Indian tour. And Gavin Robertson was there to get some tips from Prasanna, and listening to him absolutely rapt in attention when Prasanna was telling him about flight and being patient, etc. And then Robertson started to bowl, and then Prasanna stops him and he says that this is not an invitation to be hit into the boundary when you fly the ball, right? It's an invitation to loft it into the hands of a fielder. Words to that effect, right?
Yeah. It's kind of your attitude to life, isn't it? Is the glass half full or half empty? If you're a spinner, there's a man on the boundary. If you're the batsman, it's the guy in the crowd.
Exactly.
The question of which way you look at it.
That says a lot about how Indian spinners have looked at the art, and I think that's what Mike was referring to.
Now, one of the things. I'm lucky enough doing what I do now, a bit like you, really. Gave up the day job and having far more fun. Whenever though one looks at history and particularly statistics around spinners and spin bowling and great performances, for any Englishman, you'll go back to Old Trafford in '56 and 19 wickets for Jim Laker and stuff like that. But there's always that inevitable caveat that there was uncovered pitches, and then there was when they covered pitches, and it's almost like the two. You always have to put that rider onto any discussion about great spin bowling and great spin bowlers' performances. Was it an uncovered pitch historically, or was it in sort of the modern day? Is that as true for Indian spin, or is that really less of a factor in India?
I think pitches have changed over the years, but it's a misconception that Indian pitches have always are spinning tracks, right? Of course, uncovered pitches, these days you don't have uncovered pitches, but even when you did, it was less of a factor in India because you were playing, at least international cricket and most of the cricket season, you were playing it in the winter. And it doesn't rain in the winter. So the impact of a sticky wicket, a drying pitch, it has always been a bit less. And contrary to popular belief, pitches in India have been flat tracks for a fair length of time over the decades. But because of the soil, the fourth and the fifth day have always taken spin. So I think that's something that first-class cricketers have always grown up with. So they know that if they're patient, they stay there with the game. The spin is going to come at the end when it will give that extra impact to their bowling. But until then, the quality of their bowling needs to be good enough for them to last. So I think that's
So that's right. I was going to say there's the sort of, certainly the English view quite often is what's the spinner's role? I'm thinking 5-day test matches. What's the spinner's role in the first innings? It's often partnership breaking or containment. What's the spinner's role in the fourth innings? Ideally, if you've won the toss and you haven't done something daft like put the opposition in on a good track. What's the spinner's role in the fourth innings? It's about winning you the game. And it's almost like there's very two sides to what a spin bowler is asked to do. But I was just kind of interested as to whether that was more the case in the days of uncovered pitches and whether that applied to India. And it sounds as though, I think you're saying somewhat less so, because you have more consistency of weather, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's consistent. Weather is more consistent. The quality, honestly, I mean, if you look at I've covered 74 spinners, right? And as you rightly say, not all of them are the same quality as the others, clearly. But you've got a very high percentage of very high quality spinners in there. And remember, this is the creme de la creme, right? So it's the guys who came into international prominence out of a billion people. So of course there is something special about them. And if you look at the famous bowling spells in India, I think it's quite interesting if you look at that. If you look at Jasu Patel's 9 wickets against Richie Benaud's team, that was on a terrible matting wicket. And I remember a comment by Richie Benaud which said, Jasu Patel, that day was too good for us. Now that says a lot.
I can hear his voice in my head as well when you say that. Anything Richie ever said, you hear. Someone says it to you and you hear his accent in your head. It's a cricket thing, you can't help it.
Exactly. And then you have the famous debut 16 wickets of Narendra Hirwani. And that was a diabolical pitch. The West Indies had no idea what to do with it, right? And he was in supreme form as a spinner that day. Of course, you have to be, even if the pitch is bad, right? Otherwise, you don't get a Headley Verity kind of 10 for 10 unless you are good as well. But then you look at a couple of other performances. You look at Kumble's 10 wickets against Pakistan in New Delhi. That wasn't a bad pitch at all. But it was a pitch which suited Kumble. So it was one of those, the flat pitches, some balls going through, some balls bouncing. So that suited him. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't a turning track or whatever. Subhash Gupta's 9 wickets was the same. It was a good track. So it's a combination. I think it says a lot about the quality of spinners who are getting those. And even if there weren't uncovered pitches, would Jamaica had got 19 wickets without that? Maybe not. He was a great spinner. So
there was it being Manchester, some weather about. So,
of course.
But nonetheless, your point is brilliant.
Was in several spells only because it kept raining. Right?
Yeah. Now something else. As I went through the book, and the early years, right from Palwanka Balu. It was interesting that most of the players, the spinners that you talk about, were largely slow left arm with the odd leg break bowler. And it was later we have to get to Ghulam Ahmed before we get an off break bowler. Was there any reason for this, or is it just the way the cookie crumbled and it just the way fate turned out?
I've discussed this with the older spinners, with Bisham Bedi, with Dilip Doshi, and people I've had an opportunity to spend some time with, and I think we're agreed on the fact that the leg spinners, and primarily they were leg spinners before Ghulam Ahmed came in. The leg spinners came in for a very good reason, because the tracks were very hard at that time. So the wrist spin was really the only way where you could have some impact on those tracks. And if you go back to the first class matches at that time, there were huge scores. There were really huge scores. So I think that's the reason for the leg spinners. Now the left arm spinner was probably fate. I mean, you had Palwankar Balu, an amazing story of a person who just comes from nowhere from a social standpoint. He's not even allowed to sit and drink from the same tea set as the opposition, and yet he's paid extra money to come in and bowl because the opposition batsmen need to get better, and then he goes on to be probably the best spinner India had in the early years. So I think that was fate. Ghulam Ahmed, there was no one, because I think of the hard pitches, who was bowling leg spin, and maybe it wasn't an art very well known. And I suspect it was English teams like Gilligan's team, which came in before India got Test status, where players first saw good off-spin bowlers, and that's probably where the skill was picked up from, and subsequently you had Ghulam and the rest coming in.
Well, as much as I would love to go through literally every one of those 74, actually, and I have in reading them. So if you want to, for every one, I actually jotted down key figures and statistics and stuff like that, just in case they popped up. But what I think I wanted to do was to set you, Aditya, a little bit of a challenge. And now you've done the book primarily chronologically, so to make things more interesting, what I wanted to do was to have you to select four spinners across the entire history of India's spin in cricket. And you can have whoever you like, regardless of era. But one thing, we work on the assumption that those from the early days would flourish today in modern formats and with all the advantages that modern players have. Because actually there's a section in the book which I found really fascinating, which is the impact of T20 and how the art of spin bowling has almost evolved to sort of that combine that attack and defence in a very contained format. And then one further refinement is your four spinners will be selected for a home series in India against England, the current England team. So you've got to think about who's going to be bowling at who. Ben Stokes is there, that's wielding that big left-handed bat of his. You're going to have one series at home, and you're going to have one series away. Just to be fair, it's going to be away in England. It's not going to be an early April viper's nest of a green seamer. So we're going to let you play in August. So there's a bit of sunshine, a bit of English sunshine will have filtered down onto the pitch. You've got a home series in India, you've got an away series in the UK. You're playing against the current England team, and you can pick from a wonderful canvas of 74 incredible spinners. So let's set you off on that little task. Where do you start?
Okay, that's a tough one. But the starting point.
More of that interview is available on our Facebook page. Of course, welcome back to Guerrilla Cricket's live coverage of the second test between England and Pakistan. Of course, England lead the series 1-0 after that superb rearguard action by Butler and Wokes in the first test at Old Trafford. You join us just before the start of the second session on day 2, slightly messed around second session, and I don't just mean the Guerrilla Cricket rotors. I'm Nakul Pandey, taking you through the next 40 minutes or so on Ball by Ball. I'm joined by reading your tweets, David Brooke.
Hello.
And our expert summariser, cricket writer and historian Anindya Datta.
Hello, good to be back.
Yeah, a pretty good job done by Pakistan, Rizwan and Babar, to survive that shortened session, particularly given how much the ball was moving. If anything, the ball was moving more in the air, certainly, than it did throughout all of yesterday.
But it wasn't being put in the right places, though. You have to say.
In what sense? I mean, I heard you talking with the guys before lunch about England not quite being as accurate as they were yesterday. In which way did they err?
I think for one, when they were bowling straight, they were too short, and when the ball was swinging, almost every one of them except one, which I can remember from Wokes, was outside the off stump. So the batsman had no trouble leaving them whatsoever. So I think it's a missed opportunity for England in terms of how they bowled this one.
Perhaps, but not, David, an unrecoverable one. There is the sense that you're never quite in on this pitch. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it may hold true in this case.
Well, if it's a cliche, it's good enough for me.
Very good. The players are about to head back out there. Pakistan resume at 155 for 5 with Babar Azam, the magnificent Babar Azam, who has really made this look like a completely different pitch to the rest of his comrades on 45 not out, and Mohammad Rizwan on 12. We'll jingle them up.
He doesn't, because he's a cricketer from Pakistan and he's a really good one. Thank you very much.
Everyone knows he's not hit to bowl, cause he can hit the ball really quite far. If the bowling's so far, the runs are sure to flow. Oh, he bats and he keeps, and that's what the deal is, because he's Mohammad Rizwan.
Bowling has been perhaps slightly below par for England, but then England's par in golfing terms, they're playing off scratch this summer in home conditions. We'll see Stuart Broad is the last out of the changing rooms. I was a little bit surprised, to be honest, that England didn't start with Anderson and Broad this afternoon, really. We seem to have lost Anindya temporarily. He is frozen.
He's frozen in time. I guess you. I mean, actually, I didn't really hear what you said then. I was reading the tweet,
So,
but I agree with what you said, Knuckle, and I always agree with you.
well, what I was surprised by was the fact that England didn't start with Anderson and Broad.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. Well, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and all that. Let's pay credit to these two, Babar Azam and Rizwan. I mean, I like the look of Rizwan. He's been great behind the stumps. He looks a decent bat as well. And all credit to Pakistan for a good session. Interesting enough, Babar Azam has played a very, very cautious knock, hasn't he? Statistically, one of his most cautious in terms of runs scored off whatever it is, 100 balls face. The only innings that's been slower that he's played was when in Jamaica against West Indies. So he's taken his time. He's avoided temptation outside the off stump, just like Adam in the Garden of Eden.
Up to a point. That story, as I remember, didn't end well. Anyway, England are going to start with their star man this summer.
Sweep the leg, Brody. Got the best headband around. Something has got to keep her down. Got the best headband around. Your ego ain't gonna be kept down. Got the best headband around. Even though your hair is thin now.
Will be Stuart Broad bowling from, I think, the pavilion end, bowling to Babar Azam, who's on 45 not out. First ball of the second session, ahoy. Broad right arm over the wicket to Babar, very full outside off stump on what you might call the Kohli line, trying to tempt Babar into one of those flowing cover drives, but Babar is not tempted.
As I said, he's been avoiding temptation at Knuckle all morning, and no reason why he should go for that one.
Indeed, but that's a very similar delivery to. I remember in the first innings of the first Test match, Anderson bowled a very similar delivery, which Babar did chase. And Indy, you made a good point about Babar very much waiting for anything on the stumps or on the pads and taking full advantage of it. His timing through mid-wicket throughout this series has been beautiful.
Yeah, there's a magnificent drive that he hit. I mean, reminded me of VVS Lakshman, actually.
Oi, that's a little bit fuller and a little bit closer to off stump. I think that went away and in, so tough to play for Babar Azam and tough to keep to for Jos Buttler, because that started on a probably sixth stump and ended up swinging almost down the leg side to middle and leg, and Buttler fumbles a little bit, and there is no run. It's a good delivery from Stuart Broad. He's been lethal since he's worked out how to, with his 6'6" frame, bowl a little bit fuller. Such a tough ask for anyone to score runs consistently against Broad when he's bowling like this. He's in slightly shorter on a length and left alone by Babar through to the keeper. There is no run, no real carry as yet from the pavilion end. Pakistan 155 for 5. I would say that Babar moves his front foot a bit more than VVS ever did. VVS was quite happy to just sort of stand there, wait. You think you've got it through the gate, then no, the wrists turn and away it goes.
He had beautiful eyes, I guess.
3 slips only, very full outside off stump. That one does zip off the wicket, but zips through to Jos Buttler, who almost got knocked over by that delivery.
Very good
alone,
left eye.
Left alone, there is no stump. There is no run.
Zahir Clark's joined us from Jamaica. Hello, Zahir. He's got some great stats on Babar Azam, which I'll tell you about at the end of the over.
Coming up in 2 balls time. Already we've seen the ball wobble alarmingly after it's passed the stumps. I think Butler's kept quite well today and yesterday, in all honesty, after a shocking Test match with the gloves at Old Trafford. In comes Broad again, wide outside off stump, testing Babar's patience. Babar remaining patient, knowing that there is work to be done later in the day and perhaps runs to be scored later in the day if he gets through this period. There is no run. We'll start with those stats now, Dave.
Well, Babar Azam, a model of consistency. He's played in 17 Test matches since the 1st of Jan 2018. And he scored 40 in an innings in 16 of those 17 tests.
Really is remarkable. Full in-swinger, and we're talking about Babar's ability to score off those rare deliveries that come onto his pads. That was from off stump that he clipped that delivery into the leg side. Takes the single to mid-wicket. He's on 46. Pakistan 156 for 5.
Perhaps the most surprising thing about these stats is that the only test when he failed to reach the mark was against Australia. First test 2018 when he batted the number 7 for some reason. 28 not out, batting at number 7 was the highest in that. I don't know what he was doing in the Samit Patel role. Can I say also good afternoon to Ralph the Wonder Lama, who's enjoyed that quality pair of jingles there. That was Broad and was it Baba? And also William Francis, in relation to that fascinating discussion with you and Ninja at lunchtime, was talking about spin bowlers, and he actually played. I'll tell you about in a moment.
It is the old war horses, the men of 800 Test wickets together while playing in the same Test matches, and well over 1,000 in aggregate overall. Left alone outside off stump by Babar Azam. Through to the keeper, there is no run. Bowled from the very skillful hand of this man. Aha, and so first work of the Test match for the third umpire signalling a no ball.
Over the line! Huh? I'm sorry, Smokey, you were over the line. That's a
Of course, through this Test series, all front foot no balls will be called by the third umpire, and I think if it's successful, that will become the norm in Test cricket as it is now in the other forms of the game. Fullish and drivable for Babar Azam, just outside off stump. He doesn't put a lot of power into this and comes off the sort of inside half of the bat up to mid-off. There is no run. It just makes sense, really, to me, that the third umpire calls all the no balls and lets the on-field umpire concentrate on what's happening at the other end.
Yeah, but I think it's going to take a bit of time for everyone to get used to this one. Just waiting for the no ball or suddenly have it sprung on you.
Yeah, that was pretty quick, to be fair, from umpire Illingworth in the third umpire's chair. Anderson in back of a length, and Barber doesn't try and play anything too aggressively. A little bit of movement in off the seam. Barber in behind it and blocks back to the bowler. There is no run. Most of the movement that did for Pakistan yesterday was late seam movement, which is even harder to play than swing because you have so much less time to react to it, and Anderson is a master of just that in-between length and getting the ball to move in either direction. The skillful bowler he's become, getting better and better seemingly since his sort of 32nd or 33rd birthday. A little bit fuller this time, again trying to tempt Barber to drive, but Barber playing that off the back foot, which is a sign of just how much time he appears to have. I heard it was Wasim Akram talking before the start of play, saying that he hated batters being able to play him off the back foot.
Yeah, and it's just giving him that extra bit of time to see the movement from Anderson, which I think is really helping him.
And he's properly playing off the back foot, not just hanging in his crease like we've seen some do. Anderson in full stride into that from Babar Azam, but a good leave off the front foot well outside off stump, and there is no run. It looks as though England have a very clear plan, and I described it as the Kohli line, and it is very much the plan that teams used to the Indian captain early in his innings, hanging the ball outside off stump, playing on that strength that can be a weakness. But it's just the three slips in place: backward point cover, mid-off, who's a little bit wide, almost extra cover, mid-on, who's up saving one, a little bit wider than normal, two men back on the leg side at long leg and deep backward square leg, leaving mid-wicket open, so trying to get Barber to play across the line as well, but nothing doing on that occasion. Strays a little bit leg sidey Anderson, change-up delivery, and Barber can easily clip this down to Don Bess at deep square leg. They come through for a single, a rare bit of indiscipline from James Anderson straying in line. Mohammad Rizwan about to face his first ball of this second session. 12 not out, battling away. It's been in reasonable form in the last few months or so, and as much as you can tell, anyone's been in form in these COVID times. Scored some runs in the intra-squad games against obviously the Pakistan Test attack, and scored two first-class hundreds in the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy that was concluded over the 2019-20 winter, and all of the attacks he scored against had significant numbers of current and former Pakistan internationals, but he's found it difficult going in England in Test cricket in this series thus far. Anderson just putting a little bit of sawdust on his on his run-up, which is so grooved that there are very distinct divots in the turf, as though there's been a succession of golfers practicing their pitches. And Ships last ball of the second over after lunch, as Anderson is in right arm over the wicket, left alone outside off stump by Rizwan, through to the keeper, Pakistan, 158 for 5.
Thanks very much to Dr. Dan, who's been in touch with a beautiful impression of Sam Curran bowling just before lunch. You have to see that on our Gorilla Cricket Twitter feed. Neymar Butlins says, Adam and Eve at the wicket, and one has beautiful eyes. Is this a kinky Bible class? Come on, England, get rid of these so we can have a bat. Well, Neymar Butlins, you really have expressed yourself very clearly there about what you'd like to see next. And the question is, who is going to help you in that? And how many more will Pakistan score? Wherever you are listening to Gorilla Cricket, give us a tweet and let us know where you're listening to us from. And I'll read them out. And Leah, I'll come back to you at the end of the next over.
Shall be bowled by Stuart Broad. Same field, 3 slips in the gully, 3 men up on the offside, a mid on, and 2 men back in the leg, left alone outside off stump. A little bit fuller, almost Yorker length from Stuart Broad. Butler takes it after it swings after it passes the stumps in front of first slip. There is no run. It really is that those stats that Zahir sent through about Babar's consistency in his run scoring since the start of 2018 really are remarkable, and he has the best test average in the world for a decent number of innings in that time. As Broad comes in looking to prize out Pakistan's star man. That's too far down the leg side. Babar did go a little bit too far outside off stump and thus missed it as he tried to clip it round the corner. Taken low down the leg side by Butler. There is no run.
Yeah, they surprised me. I hadn't expected those sort of stats. I didn't realise how consistent he was. You know, to always score 40 above in every test match you've played, bar one, over 17 tests since 2018. Thank you, Zahir, for that. Keep them coming.
That's right, and he didn't have a test 100 before the start of 2018, only 4 50s. So it really has been a sea change in his performance. Broad in outside off stump, a little bit full of good delivery, forcing Babar into a slightly hurried defensive shot, but still comes off the middle of the bat, fielded by Broad in his follow through. There is no run. We see Jofra Archer, who's just been having a net out the back somewhere at the Aegeus Bowl.
Yeah, I'm in a lot of trouble with people for saying that Jofra Archer could bat. I said that to a lot of people before he started playing Test cricket based on his performances for Sussex, but hasn't really shown much for England yet.
He's had 1 decent innings with the bat in international cricket, but certainly his first-class stats are good. Edged and gone. That's an absolute jaffer from Stuart Broad. That is borderline unplayable on that perfect length, angling in, swinging and perhaps seaming away late. Babar Azam tried to play the original line, but it takes the edge, taken by Butler. Stuart Broad has produced an absolute perler to get rid of Pakistan's best batter. And I really don't know how you play that.
Yeah, but this is what I've been saying all morning. They've been bowling the wrong line to him, and one ball bowled correctly, swinging out, and he's gone.
On the right line, on the right length. Really, not much else that Babar could have done with it, other than try and defend the original line. You can't get forward to it, you can't get back to it, and it's that change of angle, because Broad comes in from a little bit wider on the crease. It looks like it's coming into off stump. You have to play, then it moves away late. Simple enough catch for Jos Buttler. And the way Babar was batting, you did, even though he wasn't scoring very quickly, you did suspect it was going to take something special to dismiss him.
Absolutely, and Broad just bowled a perfect delivery, and which is why we were discussing before lunch that why bring in Broad that late. Because this is exactly what Broad could have done in the first hour of play.
That said, Pakistan haven't really got away from England. They've not added very many runs to their overnight score, and now with Rizwan batting with the tail proper, England could be looking to dismiss Pakistan for under 200. Well, the first of those tail certainly is spirited with the bat and can blast a few, all with a big smile on his face.
Oh, pet! Here comes a leg spin now. He's got a googly to admire. Fucking hell, it's Saoirse.
Ball gets better and better the more you look at it from Stuart Broad to Barbara Azam. You can tell when Stuart Broad thinks it's a good delivery when he appeals to second slip before he bothers to turn round at the umpire.
Yeah, at least he now remembers to turn round. I remember Stuart Broad when he didn't do that. Got into trouble for that.
Well, he got into trouble for having an untoward with. In fact, this man who's about to face Yasser Shah in the second test. Still the same field. Still the 3 steps in the gully. The 3 men in the ring on the offside. Yasser has a big booming drive at this outside off stump and misses it completely through to the keeper. There is no run. Then Yasser practices the leave just to make the point.
Good spinners. He fancies himself as a batsman.
Yeah, in the long line of spinners who are probably more aggressive than their talent with the bat necessarily dictates.
Bhagwat Chandrasekhar always believed he had the straightest bat in the team.
As Broad finishing off this successful over. Good defence from Yasser Shah. Blocks this solidly from off stump. There is no run, but a wicket maiden from Stuart Broad, who, as good as Babar Azam has been, was too good for Pakistan's best batter. Pakistan 158 for 6.
Leo, you've got yourself a new Twitter handle, which I hadn't noticed before now, Bitchfinder General. You say you've just given us some domestic arrangements, so you've just sold your kitchen in preparation of the move back to Germany. Well, I trust that won't impact on your enjoyment of guerrilla cricket. She also adds that Knuckles reminds me so much of this. Watch all the way, it's at the end. Oh, there's a YouTube theme for you to watch there, Knuckle. Apparently your exclamation of "that was close" reminds Leah of something on YouTube. Neymar, Butlins, I've done that. Oh, lots of people calling in, telling us where they're listening from, which is great. What an exotic crowd we have. Amsterdam, Tennessee, and Melbourne. I'll come back to giving you a name check in a moment.
James Anderson 2 for 42, 8 away from 600 test wickets. Bowls to Mohammad Rizwan, and that's an absolute beauty as well, jumping from a length and seaming away as well. Rizwan forced into playing sort of by the line, and then quite lucky they didn't manage to just steer that through to the slip cordon. There is no run. I wonder now if the plan might have to change for Pakistan with Rizwan in the tail. Might have to just play a few shots to try and just get some runs on the board somehow.
I don't think he has much choice. They have to, because if they want to go beyond 200, they have to start swinging their bats now.
Rizwan is quite an aggressive player in one-day cricket, and again that's leapt from a length by James Anderson, and Rizwan does well to fence that down on the bounce to Dom Sibley at third slip as it rears back into him. There is no run. We've just seen on screen that James Anderson bowled a ball at 88 miles an hour in this spell. I don't think he's reached those speeds since about 2004. We did see that this is his this year has been his fastest on average since 2014, I think. So Anderson has really got his tail up, perhaps stung by criticism that he might be done. Retire me, pa. I'm going to have 2 fired up fast medium bowlers, and
Broad and Anderson, the gift that keeps on giving.
Again and again and again. How many times have we written off James Anderson, or have people written off James Anderson in the last 5 years? He's in right arm over the wicket to Mohammad Rizwan, who defends this back to the bowler. There is no run. He wasn't quite sure where that ball was going, Rizwan. It just seemed and swung away from him at the last minute, and there is no run. We're seeing a little analysis of that last over from Broad to Babar Azam. He's bowling from sort of mid-crease, and then just a little bit closer to the stumps, getting that angle into the right-hander and then moving the ball away. It was an absolute peach of a delivery from Stuart Broad. As Anderson is in to Rizwan, who does clip this nicely through mid-wicket. Very stylish stroke. It's in front of mid-wicket, but not timed well enough that Dom Bess won't be able to get round and cut it off, and they'll come through for 2. Rizwan's first runs after lunch. He moves to 14. Pakistan 160 for 6.
It was quite nicely timed, but of course they've got a deep mid-wicket out there, haven't they? A deep sort of wide.
Well, he's at deep square. He's a deep square leg, and he managed to come round to his left to field. It's a big playing area at the Ageas Bowl, and I think a slightly wet outfield. So maybe not getting quite as full value for one's shots. Down the leg side from Anderson. Good take by Butler as it zips through to him. Rizwan misses out on a scoring opportunity. There is no run.
Greetings, Annie is listening to us. She says, lovely commentary team with the wonderful Nakul M. Pandey, the brilliant cricket writer and ninja, and the eternal entertainer Brooker too. Annie, there's only one way this commentary team could be improved, and that's you taking my place.
You suck up. Anderson walks back to his mark at the hotel end as why is Stuart Broad complaining about the ball now of all at all points? Michael Goff, the rather hangdog looking Michael Goff, puts the ball through the handcuffs and then says, really? And throws the ball back to Broad, who throws it back to James Anderson. Maybe England don't always only complain when they're not winning. Last ball of the over from Anderson to Mohammed Rizwan. Back of a length and fenced by Rizwan, but into the offside. But backward point is able to come round. There is no run. Broad will have a full over at Yasir, or so he hopes. He's on 0, Rizwan's on 14, Pakistan 1, 60 for 6.
What a cosmopolitan crowd you are. Mike Mehul Wood says, where in the world are we? Go on then. Good afternoon from Amsterdam. Ben Henderson it is, who's in Nashville, Tennessee. Liam Kelly listening from Melbourne, Australia, hoping the Pakistanis can make a solid score. Well, that much more difficult now that Baba's out, but Rizvan's looking good. John Perry says, hello gorillas from Tokyo. You're keeping me sane as ever in the absurd humidity of Japanese summer, which surprises me afresh every year, even after a decade here. Thank you for the top quality coverage. John, thank you for the top quality tweet.
Yeah, quality stuff. We've been complaining about the humidity here in England, but it's a much fresher day here in southern England. Personally, I'm a big fan of the sun and the heat, and I don't really see what people are worried about. Yasir Shah has visions of clipping Broad through mid-wicket for 4. He even looks out to the mid-wicket boundary, but then discovers that the ball is directly in front of him. There is no run. He's not quite as... I think the absolute non-pareil of slap-happy spinners who... made up for lack of ability with enthusiasm was Mutaya Muralidharan. Yasir, I don't think, is quite in that category, but there's a lovely sort of effervescence to the way he plays his cricket. He turns this, I think, off some combination of inside edge and thigh pad through the leg side. No, just thigh, I think. Yeah, just thigh signals the umpire Richard Kettleborough. And they,
do you think Yasir Shah could do the? Do you think Yasir Shah could play this Cyril Narain role in T20 if they were allowed to play in the IPL? Do you see him in that role?
No, I don't think his eye is good enough. I don't think he's. Sunil Narain has an extraordinary ability to slog and keep slogging and connect with them. Yasir isn't quite at that level. Harbhajan Singh opened a couple of times and batted 3 in the IPL. He was a spinner with a good eye, still is, I suppose. Short and down the leg side, and I'm not sure what that come off. If anything, it's evaded Joss Butler, who tried to spring up to his left to lay glove on that. I haven't seen a signal of any kind from the umpire. I'm not sure that hit anything. Oh no, it has come off some combination of either bat or glove. We're just seeing this now. Short and rising down the leg side, top edge, and would have been a good catch by Joss Butler, but he's technically put one down, and Mohammed Rizwan has a life on 14.
Oh.
Way up in the sky, little darling. And if it falls, I'll pick it up. Just pick it up, mate.
Not an easy catch by any means from Joss Butler. Very athletic work down the leg side, but it will go down as a drop, and Pakistan by hook and crook add another 2 runs to their score. Broad in again, right arm over the wicket and strikes Rizwan on the upper thigh pad and bounces off the other thigh pad and then drops in front of him. He has no idea where this is going. Broad is bang on the money as he has been all summer. There is no run.
I think Broad's going to get a wicket soon.
Well, he should have had one there and then, just shouldn't he, really? I know you were choosing your words carefully, Nakul, but when you say technically a drop, it's a drop.
It was a drop. It was a drop. He got both hands to it. He did well to get to it, but it wasn't the easiest take. James Bracey is on the field for somebody, the Gloucestershire wicketkeeper. That's full and on the toes and clipped by Rizwan through mid wicket again. it'll be easy for this time Ollie Pope to come round, and they'll come through for a single. The throw is a little bit over energetic from the young Pope, and Broad is almost knocked off his feet by it. That is an easy single. Yasser will just face up to this one delivery from Broad.
That boundary fielder knackle looks more like deep mid-wicket than deep square.
He's
leg.
coming round. He came round quite a long way from to his left. He might be slightly in front of square, but he's more deep square leg. Broad is in, last ball of this over, which could have been a successful one, bowling to Yasser, shortening at the body, and Yasser flails this into the leg side, bounces and rolls through to Butler down the leg side. Yasser on not, Rizwan on 17, was dropped on 14, Pakistan 164 for 6.
Hello to James. He says, I'm listening in from Maryland, USA. Nice to hear some Test cricket live again. Thanks, says James. Thanks to you, James. And have a good day in Maryland. Farong says, hello Farong, greetings again from Dhaka. Rizvan is definitely a different batsman when Grubby is not doing his Billy Connolly. It's all on his own shoulders now. Yes, the rain should stay away. Depression is centred over Guernsey, so any rain will come from the southeast. Thanks for the weather report, Farong. And you're referring, of course, to Grubby's amazing stint where he commentated a whole session in the manner of Billy Connolly. I thought it was him. I actually thought it was Billy.
Yeah, that enlivened. To be fair, enlivened a session that didn't really need any more enlivening towards the end of the.
Well, you can never have enough enlivenment.
No,
Not
indeed.
An optimum amount of enlivenment.
No, indeed. Mohammad Rizwan drawing the best and worst out of our commentator Paul Grubby Howarth.
Oh, all the best. All the best.
All eyes focusing on Joss Butler, and we just saw the remarkably handsome Ben Foakes giving him a drink and a word. Another one of England's reserves. Someone who's come out very well of this lockdown trend for longer hair. Anderson into Rizvan, who tries a big booming drive through the offside and is beaten on the inside edge. There is no run. He was in no position to play any sort of stroke at that delivery. Trying to drive James Anderson on the up. I suppose, having just said that they probably need to play a bit more positively and just try and score some runs anyhow, they can. I can't really criticise too much, but if you're going to play an attacking stroke, you should try and maximise your chances of middling it, and Rizwan did not do that.
He's driving far away from his body, and he has no idea of the line of the ball.
That's better from Rizvan. Turned very fine. He's done very well to get that fine. He won't get through for 2 as the man on the long leg boundary, who is Chris Wokes, comes round to field. And Anderson will be hoping that he can have 4 balls at Yasser. Would be surprised if they keep the 2 men back on the leg side. I would bring square leg up for Yasser, I think, to try and keep him on strike. In the 67th over, it'll be interesting to see if we get anything from Dom Bess before the new ball is taken, if indeed England need the new ball. 17 overs with the old left and 4 wickets to take. Anderson in from the hotel end, right arm over the wicket to Yasser, sharp back of a length, and Yasser backing away outside leg stump, but then manages to get himself more or less in line with the ball and block back to the bowler. There is no run.
Yeah, 13 minutes ago, 14 minutes ago, but remember you mentioned that Joss Butler took a simple catch to get rid of Babar Azam, and Jeff Perkins, very timely, sent us a tweet directly after that saying, surely no catch is simple enough for Joss Butler. That was prophetic words, Jeff, because obviously Joss has dropped one since you sent that in. I dropped a catch since you sent that tweet in.
Oh, that is, I don't know what that's missed. It may have missed everything. An absolutely unplayable delivery from James Anderson. It looked like a regulation outswinger on just outside off stump, but then it held its line, seemed to gather pace off the wicket, which of course is technically impossible, and rose sharply, may have even beaten Yasser on the inside edge, and Butler takes it above his head. All of a sudden, James Anderson, who is hard enough when he's bowling like James Anderson, is now bowling like Pat Cummins. This is brilliant stuff from Anderson and Broad after lunch. What will Anderson follow that up with? He'll follow up with a gentle-ish delivery on middle and leg, and Yasser turns it into the leg side and scuttles up to the other end for a single. Reminder, of course. Sorry, Anindya, go ahead.
I have this theory that the closer Anderson's getting to 600, the faster he bowls.
You think he'll slow down once he beats Anil Kumble? start bowling at Kumble's pace. I'm sure he could do some damage even bowling at 65 miles an hour. Reminder, of course, that we had the news confirmed today that Australia will be touring England for 3 one-day internationals and 3 T20s, not in that order, from the 6th to the 18th of September. This is back of a length, and Rizwan forces this into the offside, wants a single to try and stay on strike. Zach Crawley has about 5 attempts to pick the ball up cleanly, a backward point doesn't. Even so, Rizwan can't come through for the single. Yasir will be on strike for the start of the next over. He's on 1, Rizwan on 18. Pakistan 166 for 6.
Zahir is back to say, after those stats that he gave us about Babar Azam, he says, I swear I'm the Babar Azam curse. Every time I mention a stat about him, he gets out shortly after. So no more mentions of him for the remainder of the series from me, says Zahir. Thank you to Dr. Dan for an impression of Babar Azam batting before lunch. Very nice. Leah says, asks the question, which is a sensible, which is, why should moving back to Germany diminish my enjoyment of cricket, Dave? Because you're listening from Munich at the moment. I guess if you said you were moving to a flat overlooking Sabina Park, I suppose I wouldn't have made that comment. It just felt that, of course, the enjoyment of cricket will remain, well, no matter what part of Germany you're in.
Broad into Yasir Shah, and I think Broad sort of took a divot out of the crease thing because a little bit of dirt flashed up. Yasir pokes this delivery shortish outside off stump and rising to backward point. There is no run.
Andrew Veer is listening when work isn't interrupting from an overcast Harlem, not Harlem, New York City, but Harlem, Holland. Been there a ninja to Holland?
I confess I haven't been to Harlem, Holland. I have been to Harlem, New York City.
Oh, have you? Right. Tell us more.
I studied in the United States for years. So.
As Broad is in a little bit wider in the crease and drawing Yasir into the stroke. The full outside off stump. Yasir has a big drive, misses it completely, practices the Steve Smith leave. There is no run. Even old New York was once New Amsterdam, as they mighty giants sang.
Was that the Harlem Institute for Finance?
Oh, I didn't study at the Harlem. I studied in Boston. So that a nicer part of the East Coast. Let's put it this way.
Boston's a lovely city. Very I like the fact that you can walk around it, which I'm always a big fan of as a city. That's a gorgeous shot from Yasir Shah. Just waited for it, bent the back knee and square drove it beautifully off the middle of the bat. 4 runs.
And he walks around looking like he does it all the time.
The number of the day. Who could ask for more? The number of the day is 4.
You know, you wonder why he doesn't do it every day when he can bat like that. I mean, that was actually a better shot than I've ever seen from Cyril Narain. So maybe, he could have played that pinch hitter role. Maybe people have missed out there.
Sunil Narain is not pretty. His batting is not pretty.
Mighty effective, Sunil Narain. As Broad in stung by being square driven by Yasir Shah, who then, I'm going to put that down, that's a good miss from Yasir Shah, because it was coming into him on the angle, but Yasir played inside the line of the ball and let it go through to the keeper. There is no run. He was beaten, but he allowed himself to be beaten. I think you've got to do that in these conditions. You can't have too much of an ego about being beaten on the outside edge. There is no run.
I was going to say, it's one of the great mysteries of life as to how Narain's got away with scoring so many runs in life. You think people have worked out how to bowl to him by now?
People have to some extent. He's a brilliant hitter of spin, but a little bit shaky against pace.
A little bit shaky?
Yeah, what they've done is KKR partnered him with Chris Lynn, who's a brilliant hitter of pace and not so hot against spin, so they had all bases covered. Back of a length, and Yasir middles a lead to second slip, and there is no run.
Yeah, as long as they didn't take a single, they had all bases covered.
Yeah, pretty much. Teams did slightly work it out, and I think Chris Lynn has now left KKR, although Narain will probably be opening with Tom Banton in the IPL later this year, although Shubman Gill has been pushed up to open a few times for KKR, who is a much more classical player.
Well, here's a question for you. Why doesn't Sunil Narain play 50 over or first-class cricket?
Well, he pulled himself out of the World Cup, didn't he? Because
why?
Well, he said that his action couldn't stand up to 10 overs.
Yeah, I think there's another reason. I'll tell you at the end of this over.
I think I've heard you talk about this before. Last ball of the over from Broad. Yasir hanging back outside leg stump, then sort of gets in line and misses the drive by a good 3 inches. A frustrating over from Broad. Pakistan 170 for 6.
Yeah, just to give the answer to that particular teaser, the reason why Cyril Narain doesn't play more 50 over or first class cricket, according to Stuart Law, the West Indies coach, he doesn't get up until mid-afternoon. He favours the nighttime hours because that's where he needs to perform at his best. So whatever time zone he's in, he likes to sleep in the morning. So it wouldn't do for an 11 o'clock start.
It makes sense,
not
right?
with building practice.
Although having said that,
beforehand.
the CPL matches are starting a lot earlier this year than usual because they're not
They're
worried
not
about
starting in the morning, Knuckle.
They might be, I think, Trinidad time. I think they are Trinidad time.
Are they?
Yeah, I think the first game of the day is a morning game because it's 3:30 p.m. UK time.
Because of Sunil Narayan's not going to look very good then.
No, they'll have to leave him out of the first game.
As Anderson's in, we'll have a change after this over. Anderson in short, Rizwan tries to pull, but he's early on the stroke and ends up flat batting it to Stuart Broad, who does good work at mid-on. There is no run. Yeah, we'll have a change. Not Fred will come over onto board by board. John O'Gordon will be your summariser, and Nestle Boy will take the tweets. As David has disappeared 5 balls early. Honestly, you can't keep that man anywhere. It's good positive stuff from Yasir, and trying to perhaps do what Shadab Khan did in the first test, just trying to bring a little bit of energy to proceedings. As Anderson is into Yasir, who's in behind that one nicely enough, blocks back to the bowler. There is no run, and there's great value for Pakistan in frustrating lower order runs here.
Completely, and not to forget that Yasir was the highest scorer in the last innings that they played.
He was indeed, slogged the ball very effectively. And got Pakistan up to what looked like, and to be fair, was a competitive total.
It was. It could have gone. But for that partnership, it could have gone Pakistan's way. Very, very easy.
Fantastic work by Butler and Wokes, wasn't it? Full outside off stump. Yasir has a drive, but he's nicked this one. That's number 593 for James Anderson. Full outside off stump. Little bit of swing. Yasir couldn't resist the drive. Edges through to Butler, and Pakistan are 171 for 7. You can see the relief on Joe Root and Rory Burns' faces. Yasir edges behind to the keeper for 5 off 16. Yeah, that could have got very annoying very quickly for England.
And what I was looking at was the expression on Yasir's face. It was like he'd got out at 99. He looked sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I like tailenders who set high standards for themselves, even if they're not necessarily justified. And it also, to be fair, he knows, as we were talking about, he knows just as well as we do, even more so, that any runs he could have added with Rizwan would be very, very useful. I mean, you got the tail now. Mohammad Abbas can block, but he has no shot. Shaheen Shah Afridi actually looks quite decent with the bat. Naseem Shah, haven't really seen enough of to comment, to be honest. But it's certainly, put it this way, it's not like having Stuart Broad at number 10.
You know what I feel about Stuart Broad.
I don't actually. I've not been on with you I've not been on with you yet to hear that theory.
This is true. This was against the West Indies when Tony and I were going on about as soon as Broad walked in to bat, and everybody was talking about how the last time Broad batted well was a decade ago, and I called for Broad's 50, and that's what he got.
You are the one with plenty of faith. It looks as though there's been a slight change to the batting lineup. I think that this is how they lined up in the second innings, and they kept with it. The big tall man from the Northwestern Frontier Province is out at number 9.
It's always time for Shaheen Afridi.
Left-hander Shaheen facing up to James Anderson. That's full down the leg side, and Shaheen misses the clip and taken by Butler down leg. There is no run.
Shaheen Afridi, Shaheen Afridi.
What a talent Shaheen Shah Afridi is with the ball in all formats.
He is. He's an excellent bowler. Really love watching him bowl.
He looks so not just fast, but skillful and clever, and always learning, even at such a young age. Seems to improve very, very rapidly with every game. Full swinging delivery. Shaheen sort of defending from outside leg stump with a big gap between bat and pad, but gets some of the bat on it back to the bowler. There is no run. We'll have a change at the end of this delivery. We are blessed with fast bowlers around the world. We really are.
It's a great time to be a fast bowler. I mean, and I think they're getting their chances as well, which is great to see in every team.
Pretty much every team now has more fast bowlers than they can comfortably fit into an 11. The deep square leg has gone out for Shaheen Shah Afridi. Back of a length, and Shaheen blocks back to the bowler. There is no run, not taking the easy single that was offered to him. Pakistan 171 for 7 as we hand over to Nestle boy Jono Gordon and not Fred Titmus.
Thank you, Knuckle. Thank you, Andija, and thank you, David Brooks, even though his session was a little truncated. And welcome to Jono and Nesters.
Hello.
For this, another crucial session. We always have crucial sessions. That's the thing about low-scoring Test matches. Every run, every 20 runs, every 30 runs is crucial. And this might be another one of those low-scoring Test matches. I said in the last session before lunch that although Pakistan will be delighted that they didn't lose a wicket in that hour, it was a little concerning they hadn't managed to push on, because they might find themselves in not a very much greater situation. As Broad starts the next over, and a rather odd block shot from Rizwan behind square on the offside. Jono, I think nice to be on with you again, and of course Nestor. Always nice to be on with Nestor. Although it's nice to be off with Nestor as well, because we have some good chats off there, but those probably have to stay quiet. Jono, how are you reading this for both teams at the minute after this ball, presumably? I think Broad is about to head up to the wicket and bowl. It's short down the leg side. A slappy pull aimed by Rizwan. Butler takes the ball and therefore appealed, but no one is interested. Sorry, Jono.
I think Anandea was saying this morning that he thought as soon as Azam was out, then they'd probably fall quite quickly, which yesterday Shah's come out to play his shots. Did quite well in the second innings of the first test, but he's not going to consistently score big runs. England will certainly be targeting under 200 here, you'd think.
Yes, the question remains what kind of a score that is, and we're not going to know for a day or so, perhaps. As Stuart Broad has 2 for 41, he's in his 21st over. Up to the wicket now and bowls, and the ball which just ducks in slightly to Rizwan, turns it around the corner, takes one. There isn't a second on offer, so that'll bring Shaheen on to strike. Nestlers, do we have any social media messages?
Well, Pirate Badger says he favours the nighttime hours. Sunil Nareen unmasters a vampire bat.
He's vampires.
He's a vampire all-rounder rather than just a vampire bat. You're diminishing his role in the team.
It's not true that because he doesn't do mornings. I mean, how can a professional cricketer not play cricket in the morning?
Well, this is
insane.
A story heard via hearsay from David Brooke from Stuart Law. So make of that what you will.
David Brooke, the fisherman.
Round the wicket, Broad is going to come to the left-handed Shaheen. An angle of attack that Broad's had a lot of success with in recent years. Wide of the crease, bowls a ball which does perhaps move away, but it keeps so low that it must have bounced the second time about 3 yards before Butler. He put his legs together and prevented. Oh no, he did get it in the gloves, but it was very, very low bounce.
Well done, Josh.
Oh, we're not going to congratulate him every time he stops. That would be ridiculous.
Why not?
Broad in again to Shaheen. This is a fuller ball, and he plays basically a full defensive shot, but his bat was well in front of his pads, and he just angles this away behind square on the offside. I think that pushy sort of shot is not a recipe for long-term success.
Looks like he's been practicing the inside edge on the bowling machine with all those green marks on the inside edge of his bat.
Well, some batsmen deliberately shave off the bits off the middle to give a wrong impression about themselves, and others do the reverse. As Broad is in, and again that's blocked comfortably by Shaheen, up to mid-off, no run. The end of the 70th over, 172 for 7. Shaheen yet to get off the mark, and Rizwan 20. Nestlers.
Tai Ping Chan tweets in saying Shaheen Shah Afridi, the Little Richard tribute show. A wop bop a loo bop.
A bop bam boom.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tai Ping Chan. Hope everything's all right for you in Hong Kong, and you're keeping safe and well. As we're looking at a pitch map of England's bowlers' lengths, it's not exactly concentrated on one spot. It seems to be quite varied. In England's bowl. Oh, this is after lunch. That's the last 45 minutes, basically, the last 50 minutes.
Well, talking of our listeners being in some interesting places, was
Short ball from
Cavani...
Jimmy, which is pulled,
Sorry,
on the bounce now to deep square leg for a single. Carry on.
Was Gabani is watching and listening to us from Beirut. So, I hope you're okay there.
Yeah.
Horrific explosion that we all witnessed on.
Pleased that the infrastructure is good enough for you to listen to us.
Yeah.
It's, Anderson will be bowling to the new batsman Shaheen, yet to get off the mark. He's only faced 6 balls, so he bowls across the left-hander. He's not interested in Butler takes.
Do you think they bowled well enough in the in that hour-long session before lunch, gents?
Before lunch, they didn't bowl bad in that they didn't bowl bad balls, but they weren't regularly going past the outside edge. They weren't causing huge difficulty for the batsmen, but as I said a little bit earlier, they weren't allowing them to get away. So even though it was an unsuccessful session for England in terms of wickets, Pakistan didn't advance the game in their favour all that much. So if you can do that even when you're not threatening, then you know it's some measure of success for England's bowlers. As Anderson is in again, well wide of the off stump. Shaheen does try and play an expansive cover drive, and unsurprisingly misses the ball completely. I don't know what product Jimmy wears in his hair. I'm not necessarily accusing him of bad misconduct, but Sean was talking, Nestis was talking earlier about John Lever, who got in trouble in India a long time ago for wearing a headband or some gauze, and the question was whether he had something on it which was allowing him to keep the shine on the ball. And Jimmy is well known for running his fingers through his hair on the way back to his mark. He's in again and he goes past Shaheen Shah Afridi's outside edge again. He plays a defensive shot this time, but again missed the ball. What do you think, lads? He's wearing some product in there that does something for him?
Yeah. Well, we were speculating about beards in a previous match, weren't we?
Beard
oil.
Yes.
I was clean shaven before Corona. It's the only thing I've got now on a Saturday afternoon. It can help me swing it.
It's all ball tampering, even if your shoes sweat, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, you can use sweat. You can't use spit under the latest regulations. As Anderson bowls a shorter ball again, Shaheen plays inside the line this time. He's not looking all that happy, I have to say, but not many tail-enders would be if you're facing Jimmy with the ball moving around enough. And, there were 9 overs and 1 ball to go till England can take the new ball. I think they would take it at the earliest opportunity.
Jimmy's bowled some quick deliveries today. I saw earlier on the stats he was his quickest ball was up at 88 today.
Yeah, speed gun inflation. As Anderson bowls again, this one straighter into the pads of Shaheen. Turns it into the leg side. No run. The end of the over. 173 for 7. Let's get some messages.
That's quick for an old boy.
Thank you. Oh, you were talking about Jimmy. Oh, right.
Yeah. How old's Anderson now?
38.
38. Wow. Oh, Jersey Oak says Jimmy's a spent force. Drop him. Rubbish.
Mr. Optimist, Jersey Oak in the house.
Yeah. No, I mean, him and Broad, the two of the greatest fast bowlers of all time. I mean, they still are going.
I think it's fair to say of Anderson that he's got an action which is not too, doesn't put a lot of pressure on his various joints. He's very smooth. Everything's very rhythmical. There's no reason why he couldn't keep going on. If he was successful for another few years. I'm not saying he will, but he seems to And he has suffered from injuries, as you would expect. Anyway, we're going to have a change of bowling, and we'll jingle up the replacement bowler.
Sam Curran. What's his distinguishing feature? Sam Curran. His dad's from Zimbabwe. Sam Curran. And he's beloved by Liz Yates. Sam Curran.
1 for 33 off 14 overs, Curran, as he starts a new over and gets some swing. Started on the back leg stump and then swung away. He doesn't swing it the other way. He only swings it one way, which is into the pads of the right-handed Rizwan. It goes down the leg side and Butler takes. We saw Wokes at the start. I mean, he had to finish an over. He had to bowl at the start of the day anyway because he finished an over from yesterday. But it's been a while since we've seen him. Presumably he'd be the next one on. No sign of death as yet, as Curran bowls again on leg stump and tucked very sweetly through the leg side by Rizwan, but there is a deep backward square leg, so it's just a single, and that brings the left-hander Shaheen on strike.
I was surprised to see Wokes bowl for as long as he did this morning. I was surprised that they didn't bring him Broad on earlier. I was talking about that with Nakul and Anandia before. First thing this morning, I was surprised that comfortably the best bowler of the English summer so far was left. I think Wokes probably bowled 6 in a row, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I mean Wokes is more than capable of swinging the ball and seaming the ball, and it's not like it was that brute session from the last test match. As Curran bowls, and that does swing away from the left-handed Shaheen, but it started wide and Shaheen can leave easily. I think Wokes is a little bit underrated sometimes as an England bowler. I mean, the fact that he's playing in the shadow of Broad and Anderson, an archer with his big reputation, he's sometimes overlooked. But I think, there are teams that Wokes would be, your absolute spearhead new ball bowler. As Curran bowls again, and that beats the outside prod of Shaheen, who just leaned forward and swung away and possibly moved a little bit off the pitch as well.
What's the story with Archer being dropped? I missed it.
Rested, isn't it?
Just resting.
Well, rested or rotated. I've said many times, I'm not a huge fan of pandering to players' wishes. If it's the selector's job to put out the best team that they can for any one game, and if they think that this is the best attack they can put out, then fine. I don't have a problem with that. As Curran bowls again, a straighter ball, but Shaheen does manage to block it up to mid-off. But then again, the England selectors keep picking Josh Butler as wicketkeeper, so it's fair to say they're not infallible.
Yeah.
Any more tweets? Sorry, Johnny.
No, go on, Johnny.
We were talking about the reverse of the Shy Hope effect, isn't it? When we were talking about, if people... I'll finish that.
Curran bowls, and I'll give Shaheen the benefit of the doubt that he played inside that this week. Butler no run. The end of the 72nd over, 174 for 7. Sorry, John.
Obviously we were just discussing Shy Hope and whether he'd be dropped during the West Indian series only a few weeks ago. And obviously Butler falls into the same category. It's almost like if you face fits. I will link this back to Chris Wokes, but I think a lot of it's a perceptional thing and not necessarily based on your ability. Whereas I think that you're quite right, Fred, when you say that Wokes quite often gets overlooked because he's probably in the shadow of Jimmy and Brodie. But when you actually look at his record, as you say, for many other teams, he would be their out-and-out kind of frontliner.
Yeah, certainly in England. I mean, his record is outstanding. Like a lot of the England bowlers, he's going to find difficulty in various parts of the world, and we talked about him. So Joe Root's listened and he's brought him on. Let's play his jingle.
He's on Instagram, and he's a Twitter fan. On the Ashes tour, not Ben Stokes, but he'll have to do.
It's true of a lot of the England bowlers. Anderson and Broad have struggled abroad at various times in their career. I've brought up the same question about Sam Curran. It's very different for seaman swing bowlers bowling in England to bowling virtually everywhere else in the world. And if you can transfer some of those skills to the subcontinent and to Australia, then you're a very useful player indeed. As Wokes starts his new spell with a ball which is a little bit quicker than, well, it said only 83, but it seemed to get to Rizwan quite quickly and may have caught him in an uncomfortable place.
I think the ball probably, this is why people talk about the Dukes versus the Kookaburra quite a lot, isn't it? I think, the swing bowlers certainly prefer to bowl in English conditions, but I think a part of that is due to the more pronounced seam and the fact that it swings more for longer periods as well, isn't it?
Well, that's true, but I think even if you were using, a Duke's ball in the subcontinent or in Australia, you wouldn't get nearly as much out of the wicket as the Wokes bowls again outside the off stump, and Rizwan descends to cover, no run. Back to Sam Curran, he's looked exceptionally good in England with the ball, and the question I asked, when he came into the team, people saying, well, this is a rare talent. He doesn't bowl quickly, he bowls 83, 84 miles an hour. Are those skills transferable to bowling in other parts of the world? And to be fair to him, in South Africa he bowled quite well.
We were there, I think, right, didn't we?
We were. I was there for one test match as Wokes is in again. Short ball pulled by Rizwan down to long leg. They're going to take one, they're going to think of two. Curran gets it back in quickly, that's good fielding. And Wokes will be delighted that he has 3 balls at Shaheen. So good saving of the second run there. Sorry, Nestlers, run through some tweets if there are any.
There aren't at the moment. We've been they've dried up. They're all asleep.
Right, you can go and have a rest, Sean. Put your feet up.
Well,
on the sofa.
We've got some messages on YouTube. Tushar Roy says hi. Z says thanks. And he also says Jofra Archer should replace Anderson in the 3rd Test match. Where is Johnny Bairstow?
He's playing for Yorkshire, where he ought to be.
Yorkshire.
Wokes bowls to Shaheen and goes past his outside ring. This is good bowling. Shaheen is not having a very good time at it at the moment. He's playing what he thinks are perfectly sound defensive shots, but he's missing the ball completely on a regular basis.
Oh, ball.
Yeah, that went across the left hander. He had to play at it, and it moved too far to get the edge, basically. So a little bit less off the wicket, Wokesy, and you might get on the nick. 1 for 38 Wokes in his 13th over. Bowls again. Shaheen sees a wide ball and thinks, I'm going to have a play at this, and again misses the ball completely. What's his, what do they call it on Crick Info? Control rate. I'd like to see Shaheen's control rate. It might be 0 at the moment.
I'm going to go and have a look at that, actually.
Well, he's defended a couple, so whether that's called control or not, I don't know.
62% according to the green room.
Really? Well, no, maybe they have a different definition of control. As Wokes bowls again, and guess what? Shaheen tries to play a sort of a drive off the back foot, misses it completely. The end of the over, 73 gone, 175 for 7. Shaheen yet to score, Rizwan 23. Messages.
Akwibali Lahiri says Pakistan all out 200. Ishaq Ahmed says hi. Alishan Anwar says yes sir, out. These are all people who are following us on Brick Tracker. John Schiff is listening from Cricket Wasteland in southern Utah. We'll enjoy listening inside this weekend as the temperatures go up to 44 degrees here in the Mojave Desert. You are lifesavers. Welcome along, John.
I assume he's converted that to centigrade, because 44 Fahrenheit.
Sorry, 44 centigrade.
Would be quite comfortable. As Curran bowling to Rizwan, left arm over the wicket. All on off stump with the block defender to cover, no run.
And Dave Wood goes, tweet. I hope that helps. Thanks, Dave.
No, Nestlers was quite happy with his break. I wouldn't deprive him of his rest.
I'm just thinking of the Mojave Desert now.
I've driven through Death Valley. That was quite warm.
Yeah, I've been there. It's bloody hot.
In August. Yeah. Curran bowls again. Shorter ball on the hip of Rizwan. turns us around the corner and refuses a single. There's a long single out there, so we're into that, well, some might say tedious part of the game where singles are offered and refused.
I'm not sure that's the right way for Pakistan to go about this. They should be taking every run on offer, surely.
Especially with 7 wickets down. It's one thing if it's 9 wickets down, or possibly 8, but you've still got time. You've still got people to come in. As Curran bowls, and an attempted drive by Rizwan misses the ball completely. He was expecting that to swing back into him. It went across him, and he missed it.
Am I just watching people miss the ball constantly? I think. Miss.
Lots of unforced errors in tennis parlance.
No such thing.
Well, yeah, if you serve into the net, that's probably an unforced error, isn't it? It hasn't been forced by your opponent.
They're standing the other side of the net. That's enough.
And they're putting you off. Curran bowls short down the leg side, a horrible ball, a good take from Butler, diving away to his left-hand side. Rizwan did have a poke at it, but nowhere near it.
I'm going to slash it. That counts as another miss.
Unforced error.
Butler's had quite a lot to deal with in the test match so far. The ball's been doing plenty after the bat. He's actually kept pretty solidly this week.
Yeah, he's always looked more comfortable to seam and swing bowlers than he has to the spinners. As Curran bowls again, this one comes back into Rizwan. He does take the single with one ball for Shaheen to face. 176 for 7. Honestly, I don't know who was suggesting that Pakistan have a whack earlier. I think a couple of people were, but I'm wondering if the conditions are in favour of the bowling, whether a whack might make more sense. To get a quick 30 and get England in when it's tough.
I think they're trying to have a whack. They're just not whacking.
Well, that's true. Curran into Shaheen, edges it. And did it carry to Root? He's not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. He says it was up and he's taken it. But we're going to have a good look at this. We're going to talk about foreshortening for the next 5 minutes as we wonder whether this ball has gone into the hands of Root and Slip, whether it's a clean catch or not. It's been sent upstairs. And let's play a review jingle. Have we got a review jingle for a foreshortening catch?
No.
I can't hear it.
Let's make one up.
Did he drop it afterwards?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just he's closing his hands. I think
it looks like he's
to his left hand, and then his right just closes over it.
It's like one of those grabbers at the fun fair where he may have sort of taken the top of the cuddly toy, in this case the ball, and the bottom may have hit the ground. It looked like it went into his hand, into his fingers. Then it may have. This could go either way. I'm not prepared to.
Is there sufficient evidence to overturn the decision?
Was there a soft signal? I didn't see one.
Soft signal was out.
Soft signal was out. Okay. Again, it could still go either way. We can't see his little fingers, which are hidden by the ball, to see whether they were still underneath the ball when it looked like it was heading towards the turf.
Oh, here we go.
We're now seeing it from behind.
That's not out.
I don't know. I reckon they'll say that.
Look, there.
I think it may have gone into his fingers cleanly, and then sort of burst through them, touched the ground, and then been scooped back up like the funfair grabber.
I reckon I'll give that not out.
The more you look at things, the more doubt is sown in people's minds, and the scoreboard says not out. It goes to a number of letters before he gets there. Root is looking a little bit abashed, particularly as he said, I took that cleanly. If he would have said, I don't know, then he wouldn't have to look so abashed. He's discussing it still. He's making that up motion. He's sort of saying, if I've grabbed the top of the ball, he said to the umpire, I'm lip reading, and it's above the ground, then is that a legal catch? do I have to have my hand completely underneath it?
I think
Good
he might
questions.
have been signaling what he's going to do to the third umpire's bollocks later on. For not
Well, Jono, we know that your umpires on a Saturday listen to us regularly, so you don't want to talk about threatening umpires, because you might find yourself on the end of a dodgy LBW tomorrow.
Yeah, if we get any play, I don't think it's looking particularly good for tomorrow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope. In comes Wokes to start a new over to Rizwan, and this is cut down to third man. Again, they refuse the single. So Rizwan's refusing to take any runs and then giving Shaheen one ball at the end of the over worked, although it took about 5 minutes to determine whether it worked or not, because we had to look at a possible catch. As we see Archer heading back from having a batting net. It's fair to say Archer's batting has disappointed since he's been dressed in England colours. We had high hopes we heard good things about his batting beforehand, and he's not really shown it. He's had one innings against the West Indies as Wokes bowls to Rizwan, catches him on the back foot, but that's going down the leg side, so Wokes doesn't go through with an appeal. He may have done inside edge as well. Yeah, that innings where Archer got some runs, he did get some runs on the board. It was a bit of a Broad-like innings, and then he was stepping away and swiping and playing some shots which got him runs, but they didn't smack of, of batting technique, let's put it that way. But he certainly scored some runs for Sussex down the order. We're again looking at this root catch, although we're not. Wokes comes into bowl outside the off stump, and there's one leads. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're refusing singles and all the only runs you think you're going to get are a single off the fifth of the sixth ball of the over, then the game is not being advanced particularly. You're not doing that much for Pakistan. It's just a matter of time. If England were bowling short balls every so often, you could crash a 4. Fair enough, but they're not. So I think Rizwan needs to be a bit more expansive as Wokes bowls to him, and he drives this up to mid on. It was a more aggressive shot. Broadie's there, the broad band around his receding hairline. And there are 4 balls gone on this over, so Rizwan will be looking presumably for single now. A little bit tedious this stage of play, but important nonetheless as far as the game goes. 176 for 7. And we're only 5 overs away from the new ball after this. Wokes bowls to Rizwan. And he thinks of a single. Shaheen Shah's come a long way. There's a shot at the stumps. If he hits, he's gone. And he has hit. And he has gone. Well, he played it down towards the gully. Who picked that ball up? Was it Sibley? I think it was. Sibley. Shaheen had come a long way. He was sent back by Rizwan. He took a shy. He was about 35 yards away. There was nobody at the bowler's stumps, and he hit. And Shaheen was making desperate efforts to get back, but it looks like he's well short. So again, this business of trying to get a single off the last couple of balls has undermined Pakistan. It hasn't helped them at all, and now they find themselves 176 for 8.
Right, well, Andrew Beer says, sorry gents, work keeps getting in the way. The indoor 82 degree temperature doesn't help either. Oh, sorry, can't hear these jingles.
There must be a run out here. Oh, how tragic. How tragic, how tragic, how tragic.
I don't think John Arlott would have described that dismissal as tragic.
Ralph the Wonder Llama. I'm not going to say anything about this Pakistan score until I see England bat. And Ravi Nair says, why do I have a bad feeling about this? Pakistan to get to 225 and we collapse disastrous 120 odd. Grits and grats on my temperature mistake. 44 degrees Fahrenheit is 6.66 degrees centigrade. The question is, which is hotter?
Is it one of those everything's relative questions? No, he was talking in Kelvin. Well, the 8th wicket has gone down, and we're in amongst the tail enders. The question is, how does Rizwan play now? Is he going to be a bit more expansive, or is he going to try and do the same thing? I mean, the way he's playing at the moment, even if he was into 15 overs now, he would only score about 15 runs. So I'm wondering.
It's also not like he's on 70 himself. Do you know what I mean? He struggled for the entire time that he's been out there today. He's not certainly not that influently, is he? So it's not
It's
like
difficult.
Well, yeah, but it's not like he's picking up, as you said, Fred, a boundary and over, where and then looking to rotate. So it's just all a bit drab at the moment, isn't it?
Well, I suppose in an ideal situation, what he ought to be doing is looking for those boundaries now off the first 4 balls of the over, and then trying to keep the strike.
Yeah.
As it is, he's got 1 ball, I think, to face from Wokes to try and get a single. And let's jingle up the new batsman.
I don't want to be crass, but it's time for Mohammed Abbas.
Mohammed Abbas it is, who's better known for his bowling than his batting, I think it's fair to say. I think even he'd admit that. But he'll be at the non-striker's end. That was a good bit of work by Sibley. Most of the time those throws miss. But for once, he got it spot on, hit the middle stump it looked like. And Shaheen was a fair way short.
Anna Forsyth says, morning all, Grumpy Joe Root makes me laugh so much I can't take him seriously.
Well, he was smiling broadly after that that dismissal. And well done, Sibbers.
Good old Sibbers.
What are we waiting for? It's something odd about the length of time it's taking to bowl the next ball.
Yeah.
We're going to have a change at the end of this over, which is 1 ball away.
Oh, that went quick.
Yeah, it did go quick. Just before we do that, there's an aspiring cricket broadcaster by the name of Cameron Ponsonby, who interviewed me a couple of days ago for a new cricket podcast called The Lap, which is based around Surrey Championship cricket. So give it a listen. Thanks for tuning in, Cam. It's glad to have you with us on Guerrilla Cricket, and keep up the good work, mate. It was a pleasure to be involved with that.
Well, we still haven't had this last ball. I'm not sure what's going on.
Bad light or rain? Highly likely, Fred, as I've just come on.
Well, no, they're all standing there, and yeah. Is it the Tony curse? We wonder.
Oh, he went for a wee.
Rizwan has gone for a whiz.
Well, you assume that's what it was.
Which is odd. I mean, I'm sure his parents said to him in the car as a small boy, "Why couldn't you go before we left?"
We'll have a try. At least have a try. That's what my mum needs to say.
That is a little bit odd. Anyway,
I've been reading the Tim Payne latest interviews.
Let's give Tony some, half an hour of urination puns for him to do over the next session.
Well, it wasn't a pun, though. Tim Payne did have an unfortunate incident, didn't he? Which he then proceeded to tell the world about.
Well,
excuse me, you're officially not on yet.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Shut up, Bishop. Wait for another ball.
Righto.
Wokes will be bowling to Rizwan. Right arm over the wicket to the right-handed Rizwan, who pulls us up in the air and deep over mid-wicket. Well, he's listened to us in the break. Well, he's got some strong words from his captain. It's 1 bounce, I believe, over the boundary for 4 runs. And with that, at the end of the over, I'll pass over to lucky people, Tony Bishop.
The day is 4.
Bit more like it from Mohammed Rizwan, you'd think, given the situation.
Oh, it was indeed. Fred has just disappeared. There wasn't any goodbye and thank you and have a nice time. He just off he went. So who have I got? I can see Anindo. Is it you and me again, Anindo?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
Okay.
it's the 3 of us, Tone.
Oh, and I've got you, Knuckle. Fantastic. Well, I've got the A team. What else could anybody want? Mohammed Abbas has yet to take strike, and he's going to be facing Sam Curran. Still just the 1 wicket for him. 5 overs to go to the new ball. Curran is 3 slips in. Nice little in-swinger, but nicely met. And Abbas is halfway down the track. He's going to have to hurry. I think he was sent back by Rizwan, who clearly thought, you must be barking mad, mate. What are you doing? And sent him back. And I think he made it with just about enough time. And now there's a little conflab. Let's have a look. Into the gloves of Butler it goes. down onto the stumps it comes. He's just home.
Yeah, a slightly better throw might have made things very interesting
Yeah.
for Mohammed Abbas, particularly having just seen Shaheen Shah Afridi trying to do the exact same thing from the non-striker's end and run out.
Well, I suspect the instructions to Mohammed Abbas coming out were make sure you get yourself off strike and give it to Rizwan. And he probably took him a bit too literally.
Yeah,
that instance.
But that was good from Rizwan. He came down the track and absolutely nailed it over mid-wicket. He does have some power, Mohammed Rizwan. He's got good numbers in one-day international and T20 cricket.
He does indeed. Well, he's got a test average of 29, so he's doing all right. Unlike Mohammed Abbas, who has a test average of about just over 6, I think. Curran in again over the wicket, in good length on the off stump of Mohammed Abbas, who played that, I might say, extremely nicely indeed. Solid as you like in Indo, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Not sure how, with an average of 6, how many times he's that.
6.92, it is nearly 7.
Okay.
He's a blocker. He can hang around for a while, but he doesn't have any shots. Sort of like a not quite as good Ishant Sharma.
Well, 180 for 8. We were saying earlier, I recall 200 would be a decent amount. I feel a little bit for Pakistan, the on and off nature of yesterday and the changing of the conditions, and it's not been easy. So whoever the wise tweeter was who says wait until we see what happens after England are batted, I'll come to an Indo just for some thoughts on that in a minute. 3 slips go down, flicked off his legs by Abbas straight to square leg, and there's no run. Yeah, so up around 200 in Indo. I don't think it's going to be entirely straightforward against this Pakistan attack. What do you think?
No, it's not. I think it's not going to become sunny and dry and Dubai like anytime soon. So I don't think England's going to have any easy.
Not going to be an easy ride. They'll want to get these wickets and get out there, I should think. This one again swings, but swings a little bit too late. And Mohammed Abbas can watch it by into the gloves of Joss Butler, who is scratching his England cap. Roger Pineapple, if you're listening. I know you're an admirer of cricketers wearing their caps.
Including while batting. Roger actually texted me slightly a few sheets to the wind at 1:30 in the morning last night.
Oh, God. I've got friends that do that.
He was wondering if I was...
It is a danger when you've had a few, isn't it? You just suddenly think, oh, I'll have a quick chat with somebody or other, and you forget that, they're probably fast asleep. That one is edged, but it's edged straight to backward point. It's Dominic Bess. Also sporting his England cap, as is Joe Root. So there's caps aplenty, but not obviously whilst they're batting. 180 for 8. Abbas yet to get off the mark, although he did try off the very first ball he faced and nearly completely got himself run out. Rizwan unfortunately had the presence to very firmly send him back, and a better throw would have done for Mohammed Abbas, we think. Just the one ball left from Curran. Full swinger, big shout. I thought there was some bat there. Oh, there was also a tantalising little twitch from the umpire. Now, the think tank has its 12 seconds and counting down.
Root doesn't seem keen.
I don't think Root looks remotely impressed, do you? I frankly thought there was a tiny bit of bat and the general... Oh, no, and they've reviewed. What do I know?
Root is teasing us.
He was teasing us, Ambassador.
It's a good...
That was definitely out.
Was that definitely out?
I don't know.
Yeah, before seeing
classic in-swinger, wasn't it, Indo?
before seeing it again, I'm calling for it hitting leg stump.
Okay, well, let's have a look.
And that might have... Oh, it's hit it. He's hit it.
Or inside edge.
It might have also pitched outside leg.
I don't think it did that, but it definitely hit a inside edge.
Yeah.
So they will go through the motions, but hopefully it should be all done and dusted fairly quickly, and we'll move on. And indeed, not out. I suppose... I can't recall how many reviews did England have left.
I think that's the first one they've used. It is indeed.
Well, with 8 down, I suppose that fell into the "well, you might as well" category. But honestly, even with my failing old eyesight, I saw a whopping great inside edge there.
We have some people with us on Crick Tracker, and and I think we've got some people commenting with us on Crick Tracker, but they're a little bit slow to come up. We certainly have plenty of people with us on Twitter. We did a little bit of stat. If Dom Best doesn't bowl in this innings, it'll be his third thanks for coming in 5 innings. And Gwen Newman says, in a sense, it's heartening that Captain Joe Root hates all spinners he's saddled with, not just Adil Rashid. Farong says, so Rizwan has pissed off? Yes, he went for a little comfort break, which delayed the commencement of Mohammad Abbas's innings.
Well, Chris Wokes, in his Alice band, is in. It's on the legs of Rizwan, who plays it nicely away into the leg side. Just 2 slips in place for Wokes. I assume, Anindo, we're going to be expecting to see Jimmy and Broad with the new ball, and hence we'll see these 2 probably bowl out, don't you think?
I agree, and I was just going to say on Dom Best that I don't seem to have seen him bowling since the West Indies were in England.
He bowled quite a bit in the first test, but not with any great success.
Not a huge amount, right?
No, he got a wicket, I think. Did he get 1 wicket up there from memory? I can tell you, I don't know. I will have it here. Oh, that one past the outside edge of Rizwan, beat him. All ends up. And I was just going to attempt to settle the Dom Best discussion. Took 1 for 74 and 1 for 40, so he took 2 wickets up at Old Trafford.
Just being sarcastic because he hasn't bowled for so long.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Mainly, I'll have to learn when you're being honest and when you're being sarcastic. I completely missed that.
It's even more interesting given that this
You'd be a good poker player.
It's even more interesting given that this is a 4-man rather than a 5-man attack, and still Best hasn't bowled. I know the conditions are as they are.
Well, in comes Wokes again. The 2 slips go down. Full, looking for that Yorker. Kept out by Rizwan. Not a pretty shot, but an effective one under the circumstances.
That's Chris Wokes bringing his one-day cricket into the Test arena. That was a slower ball. It was a knuckle ball, in fact, which Rizwan played well.
Yep, he did play it very well. Slower ball Yorker. Throws his head back in exasperation that it didn't quite work for him on that occasion. But I thought Rizwan played it pretty well, to be honest. 1 for 42 for Wokes, 180 for 8 are Pakistan. Wokes is right arm over and again pulled, and that's going to go all the way. No, there's a man down at deep square leg, and he in turn throws it to long leg, and between the 2 of them they throw it back to Jos Buttler, but not before Rizwan had helped himself to a couple. 182 for 8 now Pakistan. Psychologically, you feel in Indo perhaps that 200 is a good landmark to pass, don't you?
Absolutely, and I think getting to 225 from here is also possible as long as Rizwan manages to retain the strike, which he's having trouble at the moment.
Yeah, yes. Wokes in again from the Hotel End. Nicely played by Rizwan. Pulled away to mid-wicket. He will get a single. He's happy to trust Mohammad Abbas, who of course is yet to get off the mark. Was very keen to early on until he realised the error of his ways when he was halfway down the track.
Well, thankfully I think Mohammad Rizwan realised the error of Abbas's ways.
Well, yeah. Whose call was it? I can't remember where he actually played the shot. No, it was played in front of him, so I think Rizwan just took the role of the senior batsman and said, no, hang on, mate. No. Anyway, Mohammad Abbas, bat aloft. And it's a rather leggy from Wokes. And steered straight to square leg by Abbas, and there is no run. Got any messages for us, Knuckle?
Plenty. We've got some people with us on YouTube. Kitty Eleanor Langan, Z is chatting away, and Stephen Kelk, and Paolo the Gypsy, which is a perhaps racially insensitive name, Tushar Roy as well. Plenty of people with us on Hot Mic After All. Warren saying in response to that run, holy smokes, where is that comedy cricket jingle? And Gobbling says, art noon all. In from the field. Plenty more with us on
Warren of Hot Mic. I think he's almost earned that title.
The Warren of Hot Mic sounds like a sort of old title, doesn't it?
Place you get lost.
Hey, Brian Barish says, morning cricket nerds, listening in between working from home and shoving a bottle in my daughter's mouth, looking for a 4-day epic of some sort. Dave Wood says, double comedy run out Claxon, very nearly. Jeff Bishop says, Mr. T. Bishop and the rest of the A-team.
Was that Jeff Bishop?
Jeff Perkins.
Oh, I thought you said Jeff Bishop for some reason. So no relation that I'm aware of. Curran again. hair flapping, flopping, and a ball full on the middle stump, and worked away by Rizwan again. 183 for 8. We're in the 78th over. That new ball ticking ever closer. Assumes they'll take it straight away.
Dr. Leonie Hicks says drunken messages in the early hours are a hazard of knowing double bassists. But Roger's back in London now, and he lives not very far from the Guerrilla Cricket studio, so I think he was wondering if I was overnighting here and might fancy a tipple.
Okay, and Indo, I know you were about to say something. This one's cut. It was offered the width by Curran and cut through backward point quite beautifully by Rizwan for 4 runs.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And Indo, you were saying something.
No, I was just looking at the band on Curran's left hand, and for some reason I thought he'd cut off the shirt midway through on his right.
I thought that yesterday. I thought he was wearing sort of one sleeve up, one sleeve down. No, but he's got this sort of tubey grip on his non-bowling arm.
I just realized on the close-up that was the case.
Okay, well, 187 for 8. That 200 gets closer for Pakistan. Oh, inside edge. It was thrown up wide of off stump. Rizwan completely didn't time it. Didn't really move his feet. And he is looking back down the track at Curran, shaking his head, muttering probably to himself. But I suspect he realised that was not a great shot, but it was a pretty smart delivery by Sam Curran. Well bowled him, but it didn't get the wicket. 187 for 8. Curran just throws the ball from hand to hand. 2 slips lie in wait. Short! And actually, short. Did he get any bat on that? Or did he just go over slips, wicketkeeper and everybody else, or did he slightly ramp that?
Oh, it was a sort of crouching uppercut over the slips. He's actually played that really well.
It was precisely. There it was, a crouching uppercut over the slips. Either way, it's 4 runs. It was. What a shot.
You normally see those with players jumping to uppercut it over the slips, but that didn't get up. It's really well played by Rizwan.
Yeah. Well, as you said earlier, I think Aninde said it's in a kind of a one-day mode. And he did actually play it really well. He sort of ramped it, didn't he? It was a crouching ramp. Hidden tiger.
Very well played.
It was beautifully played indeed. 191 for 8. Sam Curran got a bit of a perplexed, slightly frustrated demeanour about him after that. And England are bringing in what was a deep backward point into being a sort of a more conventional backward point. Flipped off his legs though, down to long leg this time by Rizwan. He'll take a single.
I wonder if actually I think that might have been backward point running to retrieve the ball from the boundary's edge and then coming back into his position.
Actually, that's very true. I think you're quite right. It was a lovely shot. Lovely shot. I don't think it was actually, because he would have then had to walk all the way around, because the ramp shot kind of went more down to third man, didn't it? But 192 for 8. Run rate comparatively conservative, 2.47, not quite at 2.5. But it's not been easy. Boundaries have been at a premium today. The bowling has been attritional when it hasn't been dangerous, and Pakistan have not found putting runs on the board that straightforward at all. That one's a down leg. Abbas looks to help it on its way, doesn't lay any bat on it, and it's through to Jos Buttler. So end of that Curran over, and we'll catch up with whoever's with us.
Yeah, plenty of people on Crick Tracker. Mohammed Nizamuddin, Ali Hassan Panwar, Ishaq Ahmed, Aqib Ali Laghari says Pakistan all out 200. Mohammed Azman, what is an average score in the first innings on this ground? Mohammed from Blackburn. Tony might have that in his notes somewhere actually. Rahmat says Pakistan all out 190. Well, they've moved on past that. Afsar Ali, this is a little bit old. Rizwan only there, not making runs, and I think he may have heard you. Mohammed Azman says bowlers have to do quite a bit of batting in the game, so they are not coached. Why are they not coached to bat? And Fahad Ali is with us as well on Crick Tracker. Alex Southworth on Twitter says looking likely that the Rose Bowl record highest ODI score, Guptill 189 not out, will remain higher than the record test individual score, Ian Bell 167, for another test.
Yes, I suspect that is likely to be the case. I don't actually happen to have the average first inning score. I have the average runs per innings, if that's or average runs per wicket, which would give you an average score overall, which is 32.2.
Sorry, the average first inning score is 300 at the Rose Bowl.
Perfect. Thank you, Nindo. In comes Wokes, so a wide of off stump and a bit of a slash from Rizwan, who's cross with himself. Possibly because there was something of an absence of footwork, and it was a bit of a wild slash.
Cross with himself, but he missed it, I think.
Well, it could be any number of those things. It was a funny old shot, though. Was certainly thrown up fairly wide by Wokes, but Rizwan survives on 40. We're seeing behind him Rory Burns going through some wheeling arm motions, and this one is driven between cover and extra cover quite superbly. It's not going to make it to the fence. Yes, it is, I'm afraid. Thrown up, got the treatment. Jimmy Anderson chased it, and to no avail. 4 runs.
And India and I were calling for this a little bit earlier. This is smart batting against the old ball.
Yes. And I suppose, well, you wouldn't want to. Would you bring your spinner on right now when you think that maybe there's a hint of perhaps wanting to make some hay?
Maybe
in the last of the sunshine, because the new ball might represent tougher times. This one's full and defended by Rizwan, who in one movement puts his bat down and holds his arm up just to make sure Mohammed Abbas hadn't had another lapse of reason and was halfway down the track to meet him. He wasn't on this occasion.
I would give Dombes a couple of overs and just try to get them to loft the ball into the outfield.
Well, he's only going to get one because there's 9 balls left of the new ball.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's only going to be, at the end of this over, there's only 1 over until that new ball arrives. Full on off stump, played nicely by Rizwan again, guided away down to third man, where Ollie Pope does the fielding.
Well, I think with 7,014, Joe Root's probably forgotten he has a spinner.
Yeah, well, he occasionally does have previous form in that department as well, if you ask Adil Rashid.
Well, also Don Bess, as I said, this would be his 3rd thanks for coming in 5 innings if he doesn't get a ball.
Yeah. But I wonder, as a spinner, I'm going to save that question for an Indo maybe after this ball. As Wokes is in, and nicely forward comes Mohammed Abbas to the man of born, back to Wokes. Yeah, as a spinner, if you're on the side that loses the toss, elects therefore and doesn't bat, do you feel slightly downcast that you're not going to get last use of the wicket in a test match or a long form of the game, or do you just kind of crack on with it and go, well, it's 50-50 chance, on we go?
Well, I think you'd crack on, but you would, as a spinner, always prefer to have last go.
Yeah, indeed. Wokes in, and Abbas nicely forward again, patted away really to the onside, 83 miles an hour. End of the over. More messages.
We've got a bit of cross-platform chat here. We read out Mohammed Osman on Crick Tracker talking about bowlers being coached to bat. Kate Eleanor says bowlers are coached to bat, but there is only so much that can be done. Sometimes laughing, crying, rolling around emoji. Kate Eleanor says said this tail is beginning to wag. Well, sort of. Mohammed Rizwan is wagging, and Mohammed Abbas is still in. I think that's about as much as can be said for this innings. Tony Cork, in response to Leonie Hicks giving us the skinny on double basis, says, bartender, make mine a double. Oh, hang on a minute. An Armchair Cricket podcast says, a plucky innings from Rizwan notwithstanding, this is disappointing from Pakistan on day 2. One expected the last recognised pair to take them to 200 and with tail contributions on to 250, which looks distant now. Armchair, I think you may be being a little bit harsh on Pakistan. These are not easy conditions to bat in, and Broad and Anderson bowled, particularly Broad, bowled magnificently after lunch.
They did, and also Pakistan aren't that far shy of 200 now. You know, sometimes when you're desperately striving for those last couple of wickets, it's amazing how often the bat gets thrown and all of a sudden you find there's an extra 60 or 70 runs have gone on the board.
England have,
and you wonder, how did that happen?
I think England are fed up of this now.
Well, Stuart Broad it is. So, interestingly enough, they're not waiting.
Got the best headband around. Something has got to keep her down.
Well, he's in, and that one kept low, I think. And Rizwan had to be sharp to drop the bat on it, keep it out and drive it away, push it away rather into the on side. Yeah, so an over abroad, perhaps to warm up. ahead of that new ball.
He was getting significant movement with the old ball, and I think England are just a bit tired of this Mohammad Rizwan swinging the bat and Mohammad Abbas being his runner.
We're seeing a close-up with Jimmy Anderson, man who much has been talked about. Driven straight to mid-off by Rizwan, and there's no run. Jimmy Anderson himself is shining the ball, thinking, well, we'll get the best out of it. You don't think perhaps Joe Root's thinking of not taking the new ball and seeing if he can get a bit of reverse swing out the old one?
I think it looks like orthodox swing, to be honest.
Got it so far, so I don't know if there's any point in waiting.
Well, I'd be with you. I don't see the point in waiting, but who knows? I was trying to get into the mind of Joe Root. If it was me, I wouldn't wait. I'd get that new ball into the hands of my gun bowlers as quickly as I could.
I think I'm with you.
One of whom currently has the old ball in his hand and will be bowling right arm over to Mohammad Rizwan. Swings away slightly late. Rizwan's able to leave it outside of his off stump, and there is no run. And then, as has been his wont, quite often he then repeats the shot just to check everything's in working order. Which it does seem to be for him, I have to say, today. Very nice indeed.
Decent partnership between these two, 21 at 4.5 and over.
Well, you say decent partnership between these two. What percentage has Rizwan contributed versus Mohammad Abbas?
He's faced 10 balls. He's faced 10 balls.
Just below.
But as Broad is going to be in. And there's a shorter ball. I don't think, did Rizwan get any of that? Butler flung himself like a leaping salmon, but didn't get a hand to it. There was a man down at long leg. I don't think, whatever they say about the Butler folks debate, I don't think you'll hold that too much against the keeper, will you, on that occasion, Aninde?
No, it would have needed 2 keepers to get to that.
He did well. Yeah. He's got half a hand on it, and it shows how athletic Butler is that he got near that.
Yeah. I suppose the only thing you could say, he kind of went across himself as opposed to with his leading hand, which, to be fair, might have given him a better chance.
You sometimes get more reach when you go with your top hand, like a goalkeeper.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I would have said that would have been something special. Anyway, we're going to see Ollie Pope. A helmet has been brought out for him, as has a gentleman's accoutrement garter, which is popped down the trousers and the helmet on the head, not the other way round, which would look daft. 198 for 8.
I suspect there's going to be a few jumping up.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of intimidation probably now to Abbas. 3 slips in, wide of off stump, and well, that wasn't the ball to intimidate or, well, nothing really. It was the most leverable, tame delivery you could expect to see, I think.
You can practically hear Mohammad Abbas going, phew!
Yeah. Yes. I suppose if you're a lower order batsman and you see forward short leg being given the helmet, there's almost a sort of a bit of a theatrical production of the helmet delivery. The theatre of it is all designed to make the batsman that much more nervous. So yeah, I think you're right, Nakul. There's a bit of a few there probably in the mind of Mohammad Abbas. Broad comes steaming in again. 3 slips go down. Full down leg side though. Through to Butler. End of the over. The second new ball is available. So we will just wait on your tweets. Looks, yes.
Well, it's being run out by the reserve umpire, who I think is Martin Saggers, the former Kent seamer, but no word on whether he's taken it yet. I'll read a few people from Cricket Tracker. Fahad Ali and Purong Twing Bang with this. Lovely sketch of Root and Butler from Dr. Dan Diaper. Spicy Golden Duck says, all we are asking is give Bess a chance. Gits and Grats is enjoying my pronunciation of Asian names, but Subtle Life rightly calls them out for calling them exotic, which is probably a word we should avoid in relation to that. Some news from Linux Lear. The German women's captain Anurada Doda Balapur has become the first bowler in women's T20s to take 4 wickets in 4 balls.
Wow,
which is magnificent stuff.
Fantastic effort.
Fantastic work against Austria. Thank you, Linux Lear. Armchair Cricket Podcast says gentleman's accoutrement indeed, but doesn't mean he was playing without one all this while. Quite brave if he was. Well, that was.
Well, he wasn't at forward short leg before. No.
We do have the new
well,
ball.
the new ball. The new ball has been taken. Do we have a jingle, Knuckle?
Certainly do. Ooh, Wokes.
New ball, please.
And interestingly enough, as you heard, the ooh from Knuckle was that Chris Wokes is a man charged with the new ball, bowling from the hotel end. He still only has just the 2 slips, and he immediately strays onto leg stump, and it's whipped backward of square leg by Rizwan.
Let's get a jingle for Chris Wokes. By the way, it looks absolutely miserable out there at Southampton.
He's on Instagram, and he's a Twitter fan. On the Ashes tour, not Ben Stokes, but he'll have to do.
Now, interestingly enough, I'll just hold that thought for a minute. That one again is down leg. I don't know if he got any bat on that, but it's evaded Butler and it's gone for 4 byes. Yep.
Again, pretty harsh to hold that against Butler, given how much it swung down the leg side.
I think Joe Root has a very interesting captaincy.
Sorry, Andy, I'll cut you off with the jingle there. Go ahead.
I think there was some pad there. Sorry. Yeah, we're all cutting poor old India off. I'll shut up.
Did you get that?
No, go ahead.
We didn't hear you.
Sorry. So I said a very interesting style.
Wokes again. Going to be in. This one's a better line. Outside of off stump this time. Swinging away. What interested me was that flick to leg, the first ball of the new ball, as it were, by Wokes, down to backward square. I would have thought they'd take a run, but they quite conspicuously didn't, which rather suggests the plan is Rizwan going, look, Mohammed, I'm going to have this to Abbas. And I suspect they'll only be looking. So how England changes the field off the 5th ball of this over might be interesting. We'll see. Full and nicely defended by Rizwan away to short cover. And there is no run, 81 miles an hour.
Is Anderson actually on the field? I'm not sure that I can see him out there, which would obviously explain why Wokes has the ball in hand.
It'll be interesting because we saw him going through some limbering up exercises only a couple of overs before the new ball was taken. So if he has gone off, it's for some sort of preparatory work. David Rook is very quick to tell us that Ollie Robinson is on for Anderson. Sadly, David not able to bowl, of course. I know your time will come to cheer on Ollie Robinson, David. It's a matter of time, I believe. In comes Wokes. Down the track comes this one, who was looking to basically plant this as far as Bournemouth, I think, the way he swung the bat. But he missed it completely, and it was through to Joss Butler. What on earth? Let's have another look. 2-3 steps down. A huge heave-ho. And laid nothing on it, and it was through to Joss Butler. But I think, Anindo, you could say the intentions were clear.
They were honourable.
Clear and honourable, yes. Anyway, the 200 is up, of course, with that 4 byes. 202 for 8, so Pakistan have got to that. England will be massively and mightily frustrated if they can't get a breakthrough with this new ball. Wide of off stump, reached for by Rizwan, and in fact signalled as a wide. So either Wokes is striving that little bit too hard, or there is so much movement out there that you can't really. It's a bit hard to control. Sorry, Knuckle, I only heard the wide jingle right at the end, and it's not exactly the longest one.
I think that's a bit though. That wide.
No, I think that was outside the. Rizwan couldn't have played an actual shot at that. He's trying to hang it outside off stump.
In comes Wokes again. That one does swing in more conventionally, and there is the predicted quick single. Of all, I know, Anindo, I think in your performance with us, you called exactly the score that would be scored and when the wickets would go down. You were like the oracle. But I think you and I could both have said there's going to be a single off this last ball of the over, and we would have been right. 204 for 8. So Abbas will continue his role as spectator, whilst Mohammed Rizwan looks to try and make as much hay as is possible in the time that he's permitted.
We do have some tweets. Jeff Perkins says, "Come on, Tony, as half of this partnership, when they finally separate, Rizwan is entitled to half the runs unless there was a prenup." Sports Tiger are giving us a little bit of joy, saying England have taken the new ball. Delighted to be partnered up with Sports Tiger as from this Test match. Butler says, "What's Butler score today? -4, which I think is very harsh."
Oh, is that Messi Jez doing Butler count? But in comes Broad. Rizwan knew nothing about that. He was completely squared up. They look for 2. Now this will be more interesting. It was a way to backward point. Rory Burns, looking like the Victorian matinee idol with his moustache and beard combination, did the fielding there. I'm not really sure what shot Rizwan thought he was trying to play. It could have been a defensive shot. It could have been a turn to leg. It ended up being none of them in actuality, and was a squirt to, as I say, sort of really down to gully. But England don't have a gully; they just have the 2 slips. Which means Stuart Broad will have Mohammed Abbas in the hair of his sights.
Rizwan fallen.
What's that?
Rizwan looks crestfallen that he couldn't retain strike.
Well, yeah, I think he will be. There's certainly that. Well, and that's not the best ball. He got away with it, did Stuart Broad. Perhaps looking for that little bit of swing. There's a way into the onside where there were enough fielders to do the job. There's going to be a change at the end of this over. I'm off to have a little chat actually with Katie Cooper ahead of our conversation more formally tomorrow on Guerrilla Cricket. 205 for 8. Bass is he looks nervy, doesn't he? He's all moving parts as he tries to settle himself. 4 slips short. He ducks. Well, it was not even really much of a duck. He got down on one knee, almost as if he was about to try and propose to somebody. But he survived. We're halfway through Stuart Broad's 23rd over.
Abbas plays quite a few innings like this where he bats sort of 26 balls or 30 balls with 3 runs.
He wore that one on the arm guard. Didn't get up at all. He ducked down under one that literally didn't get up, hence taking it on what would have been a very painful bang on the elbow, but he has the arm guard in just the right place on his arm, funny enough. 3 balls left of this over. Stuart Broad striving to get through this defence, and it's down leg, swung a bit that time. Oh, Rizwan, when he moved, he picked the bat up, let the ball through, and then he almost held it long enough to look like he was doing one of those stretches one does when one gets out of bed.
Is it Abbas is just limbering up to bowl?
So long.
I honestly, Mohammed Abbas is putting all of this into the computer in his head. Yeah, in his head, and he's just Abbas is basically using this as right. I need to pitch the ball on this blade of grass.
Yeah, could be. Joe Root appears to be. I sincerely hope he's not having thinking about having a ball. Broad's going to be in again. 2 balls left, and nicely played by Mohammed Abbas. Just down to point. Weighted, high elbow, straight bat, head still. Everything nicely in alignment. All to no additional runs on the scoreboard, but you'll feel a little bit happier maybe, and a little smile about it on his face. I think he quite enjoyed the technical correctness of that shot.
He was smiling after ducking and being hit on the arm.
Well, I think both of you are being unfair here. I'll tell you why after this ball.
Okay.
I can tell you because got delayed. Imagine this was Jack Leach with at the other end. I think her comments would have been far more complimentary.
No, it's a fair.
That you may have a point. England have brought in a leg slip, no, more of a short, fine leg, really. Well, no, leg slip. England have brought in a leg slip, so this might suggest this one is again going to be perhaps short, and it's not, and it's full outside of off stump. So there, if that was designed to be some sort of bluff or second guess, who knows? Anyway, that's the end of my stint for now. I can see the handsome visage of not Fred Titmus and Nestle Boy. I will leave you until after tea. Take care.
Till tomorrow.
We've David's supposed to be joining us, and here is David.
Sadly, it's the less handsome visage of yours truly here. Not Fred and Nestle. And thanks very much to Naffle and Tony and Ninja. Not Fred. Hello.
Hello.
Good. We've established contact.
Yes. How are you, David?
How would you be feeling if you were Dom Best, Fred?
I'll be quite happy.
What? Not getting a bolt?
Yeah, it's a team game.
Okay. And here's Wokes and Bowles, and that's covered up by Rizvan, and there's no run. I have to say, I've really enjoyed this innings from Mohammed Rizvan. What a great little wicket-keeper batsman he is, Fred.
Well, he's the best wicket-keeper in this game by a long shot. He's played it quite sensibly. I was not critical, but I was wondering earlier when they were sort of 7 down exactly how he was playing it. And he's actually, since that wicket of Shaheen, that, well, I don't know if it was a comedy run out, but it was a run out nonetheless.
Wokes, and that's down the leg side. Slightly squares up Rizvan, there's no run.
But since that wicket fallen, he's played very sensibly. He's tried to score runs and keep the strike. He's doing his best for his team.
Yeah, in great tradition of doughty wicketkeeper batsmen, round about 6 or 7 in the order.
Well, there is this it's believed that wicketkeepers have to bat.
Wokes pulls this one wide of the crease, and Rizvan jabs down on it, thinks about a single, but he's not going to, although the single was readily available right down to deep backward point, he's electing not to take the run.
If you had an absolutely outstanding wicketkeeper who could bat, there'd be a case for playing him even if you had to bat 10 or 11. But it is generally assumed all around the world that wicketkeepers have to bat. It is what it is.
I sense your frustration as a glove man, Fred.
No, I'm not a glove man. No. I only took it under the direst emergency.
Here's Wokes, and that's short. Rizvan jabs down on it, goes first bounce to second slip, where Rory Burns does the fielding. It's your specialist slip, Fred, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yes. My job is to talk to them.
Right.
It's a specialist position, and it's a very difficult position, and I think the fact that its skills are undermined by people insisting that they have to do more than one job, I think is regrettable. A top-class wicketkeeper is an absolute joy to watch.
Indeed.
One of the important skills of the game.
Well, indeed, and as you say, Rizvan was impressive in that primary skill, and here he is in his second supporting role as a batsman to Wokes, and he flicks that one down the leg side pleasantly, and there's a big chase on the long leg boundary. Has he gone all the way? Oh, valiant attempt to stop that by Sam Curran, who's got there. They're going to be looking at the umpire's going to have a look at this, surely, Fred.
I don't think so. He looked a pretty clean save, but he didn't have the best angle for it.
So it's 2 leg byes. Let's have a look. Oh no! Oh, what do you think? Clean. Okay. There was a crashing into what used to be the bound known as the boundary boards, but it was after Curran had released the ball, or after he'd parried the ball, shall we say. Joe Root would have been impressed with that piece of fielding. He's one of 2 slips. Got a ring of fielders, saving the one now because there's only 1 ball left in the over, and they want to keep Rizvan down there. Rizvan's holding up the bowler, and he's having a look around to see where the single is. Here comes Wokes to him now. Down the leg side, he's going to get the run there. Just tucks it off down to long leg. Couldn't see what Wokes was trying to do there. End of the over, 208 for 8.
Anna Forsyth is with us, says Chris Wokes needs a new jingle. But our podcast has jingles from 2 hockey seasons ago, so that's not a criticism, or at least it's a hypocritical one. Brendan Stanton sent a lovely picture of his 2 dogs, Sydney and Bowie, here in Sweden. They're feeling a bit warm, it's 30 degrees there, but he's got a cold beer and he's got us on, which is all good. Leah, Bitchfinder General, says that style of beard, Rory Sports, has a really vulgar and offensive nickname in German. I will not bother your listeners with it. And then she gets told by Dizzy Yates to say, tell us. So we're waiting on that.
That's interesting.
I think I might know what it is.
Are you up on sort of German vernacular, Nestle?
No, but there is an English kind of version, let's say.
Right now, you're the one being cryptic.
Yeah,
This is turning into like one of these cryptic crosswords where you don't understand any of the clues.
I'm a polite person, Dave. I don't
Got it.
I don't like to be offensive.
I see. Broad bowls to Rizvan, who's on 48. Yeah, Fred, I thought the ease with which Rizvan was able to pick up a single there, that must disappoint you.
Well, it'll disappoint both Wokes who bowl the ball and Broad who's bowling the next over. But yeah, it wasn't a perfectly directed ball for what he was trying to achieve.
So it puts Rizvan back on strike for this over. He's always had the first ball. He's on 48. Abbas at the other end, obviously yet to score, but doing a great job. Here's Broad, who bowls wide of the crease, and this time he's going to go for two. He's run the first one really fast. And this is going to be a tough one, and it's very tight, full-length dive, and this is going to keep the third umpire very interested. It's gone upstairs to look at this one.
I'll be reviewing the opposition, because those reviews exist to extend my career. Not that I believe that they'll save me.
It was very tight, but it's in.
Yeah, it didn't look out on first viewing. I should say that now because we've seen the slow motion recently.
Not out, indeed. And this gets applauded by the Pakistani players on the balcony. I guess they're applauding not so much the decision, but the well-run two. And that's they're also recording the half century. I beg your pardon. 50 runs for Mohammad Rizwan.
50 runs. Well done, well done, well done, well done.
Backward defensive from Rizvan.
50 runs. The job is only just begun.
Yeah, very well played half century there for Rizvan. All that excitement, I've forgotten that was the second run was for his 50. And yeah, it certainly it involved Abbas having to give it a good old stretch, but in the end he made his ground, and well run too, that's for sure. Here comes Broad now to the half centurion. He's gone onto the back foot and pulled that away down to deep square, and they're going to get a single. So he's left half the over for Mohammad, 2 balls for Mohammad Abbas to negotiate, as indeed Rizvan gives him the two finger sign, not that one, Fred, the other 2 finger sign to indicate that there was 2 balls to survive.
I don't think they're celebrating the Battle of Agincourt somehow.
From that angle.
A 2-fingered salute. Dave, do you ever umpire your club games?
Only when not batting.
Well, I should hope so. There's this thing that umpires do nowadays.
Here's Broad wide of the crease. That really darts in as Bill for LBW thinks about it. Not out.
Could be a bit high. How many reviews do England have? 2 left.
They have 2 remaining, and that's one of them.
And they have
going to use. Yeah, they have reviewed. So, can we have
be a bit high?
Suitable decision review music, please?
Now it's a time of great decision.
Beautifully chosen by Knackle.
Looks leggy.
Does look leggy, and
on first viewing.
Do we have it looks a bit leggy piece of music? Maybe we should.
Yeah, John Wayne is Big Leggy was a for Hazy Fantasy in the 80s.
And it is indeed umpire's call. Would have clipped the top of leg stump, but it's umpire's call, and the decision remains not out. Abbas remains not out. Not out. That's a score that you must have found yourself in that situation a few times. Fred being left high and dry.
Yeah, often for a couple of balls as well. Yeah, I tended to get a move on actually when I was batting. Well, I tried to, except once where I batted at Datchet for 90 minutes in the dark, same as draw. That was fun.
No floodlights in those days.
No, they were quite decent bowlers as well. It was quite tough watching for the bowlers then.
Will we find you in
somebody
Wisden?
at the other end battered.
Yeah. Will we find you in Wisden, Fred?
I wouldn't have thought so.
English Public Schools 11 or something like that. No. Abbas now on strike. He's got one ball left, and there's a chance. Is it taken or is it just? No, it's missed. There's definitely a chance, and Wilkes is having to do the retrieval on the balcony. And I think the way that Joe Root has responded there is indicating that not only did he drop the catch, but it's hurt his finger as well.
Yeah, tough catch. He was going down to his left. He probably just about carried. Hard to tell without seeing the slow motion replay. But it was a genuine outside edge. Oh, no, bounced in front of him.
Yeah, just in front. Yeah, bounced in front. We can't call that a drop, and but certainly no less painful for being on the bounce, and it did clip Joe Root's fingers there.
He hurt his thumb the other day, didn't he?
Yeah, right. Yes, and that wouldn't have done it any good at all. It's hit the palm of his hand, and that is painful.
Well, I was going to say earlier, umpires nowadays are you seeing quite low grades of cricket who are constantly signalling to each other how many balls there are left in the over. 2 or 1, and they're touching one shoulder and they're pointing one finger. It's all very confusing. And I go out to umpire, which is not very often. You get umpires glaring at me for not acknowledging their signal for square leg.
New over from Wokes, and Rizvan nicely off the back foot. Again, he's going to look for 2, and this time it's very comfortable down to deep point.
Well, I've just seen the tweet from, I saw what Leah Bitschweiner General's German Rory Burns beard or moustache is, and I can't read that out.
Well, that gives you some degree of its unacceptability if Nestle won't read it out, and he's a very tolerant man, very broad-minded. Wokes in, and that's pushed out by Rizvan. This time he sets off because it was the easy run there, and then realises the situation of the game and says to Abbas, no run.
People sometimes complain about us not swearing, but I mean, there's a limit.
We found your limit. We've tested that out, and Nestle's limit has been reached. Now, the umpire's having a look at his light meter, which is never a good sign. And
very dark here in Essex, but
yeah. Fortunately, the game's not taking place in Essex as Wokes bowls, and it's played into Rizvan, and there's no run. I don't mean that out of any disservice to Essex, the county. But it wouldn't be the same sort of game. Imagine if the second test was being played at Chelmsford. I mean, really.
Would you notice these?
Takes the edge off. It would take the edge off it. You say, "Yeah, I scored 1 Test match century at Chelmsford." Nobody would believe you. And they're going off. It's not offered to the batsman anymore. The light. It's just the fact that it's hit a certain point on the gigamometer, whatever it's called. And
don't look happy.
Broad's not happy, Wokes not happy, but it's obviously the Pakistani batsmen don't need too much of an invitation to take the sanctity of the pavilion, and rather frustratingly for England, there's going to be a delay for bad light. If there were a crowd, even a socially distanced crowd, I would put it to you they would be slow hand clapping now, because it doesn't look any darker that on this monitor than it did earlier on in bright sunshine. We can't tell how dark it is actually. Rizvan accepts the applause from the balcony. He's going to go in with a really good unbeaten half century to his name. Yunus Khan has enjoyed that. He's put down his book and picked up a towel instead, draped it over his shoulder. And and Anderson and Broad are walking off in the manner I put to you, Fred, of Ambrose and Walsh, the way they used to walk off the ground together.
Well, they're like Ambrose and Walsh. They're sort of roped together as a pair. They are very much a duo. Not in their private lives, I hate to add, but it's a bit frustrating for England. But in other ways, actually, the fact that these last 30 runs have come pretty quickly, it's not the worst time for England to take a bit of a break. It will be the tea interval, so we're going to have at least 20 minutes off, and possibly further, depending on whether the light improves or not.
Do you want me to finish off the tweets in that
yes.
case?
Why not?
Well, Messages just tells me to use Bradnam instead for that description of the moustache. Messages says the bowling since taking the new ball has been pretty rubbish, frankly. John Batham, is that our own John Batham? It is, isn't it? A pretty useful score for the real PCB, thanks to their grit, coupled with indifferent bowling from England. Suspect Pakistan quicks won't waste as many balls as we've been guilty of doing. Leah Bitchfinder General says, too vulgar for guerrilla cricket, I'm honoured and blushing a bit. Brian Barish, Nestler's bad words limit is reading out a word that has to do with encountering someone in the second person on the third day of the following week. Work that out. Steve Shipcott, those umpire signals of which you speak can be useful, especially if there are extras in the over, but they do make one look like a particularly poor dad dancer.
Yeah.
Thank you for those, Nestle. So tea is going to be an early tea. Unfortunately, one man who's also able to take an early tea with us is the former West Indies batting coach, Middlesex and Glamorgan stalwart, Toby Radford, who joins us again. Hello, Toby.
Hi, David. How are you?
Great to hear your voice. You've been causing quite a scene over in the Caribbean with your analysis. I know they've been lapping it up there because they do absorb criticism like a sponge, don't they? You haven't been critical of the West Indies, but they've interpreted your remarks in that way. Is that right?
Well, you try and be constructive, don't you? And I think as a West Indies fan, which I am, having worked with them for a period of time, and having won that first test, the sort of slide away they did over the second and third games, it was disappointing, really. It had all started so well. You didn't envisage losing the series 2-1, having been 1-0 up away from home.
Now, I'll leave it there. We'll come back to that in a moment. But, how would you... Obviously, you're watching effectively as a neutral now, because I know how much you love West Indies. But watching this Pakistan batting lineup against England, obviously you must have had cause to compare and contrast, particularly, if I may say, the first test, Shan Masood, with the way that he went about his game in compiling that 150. You must have enjoyed that. What was he doing differently, to last time?
I thought it was an excellent innings, far more discipline outside off stump. I mean, he got last tour that he was here, he got dragged into a lot of balls in that sort of off stump channel, flirting with the ball. This time, far more decisive, only really played at balls he had to. And in the end, England, he sort of bored England. They came a bit straight and then he picked them off. So most of his runs were coming off the straighter balls, clipped into the leg side. Very, very patient. I mean, it was a sort of a Shiv Chandapur-like innings, wasn't it? Batting a long time, prepared to suck those balls up. And eventually you get bad balls, ended up with 150 and should really have been on the winning side. I mean, they'll have been hugely disappointed to have had a lead of 100 and then not go on to win that test match. But I thought a great innings and brilliant given how tough a time he'd had on the tours here before. I think he was averaging 4 or 5 or something like certainly against Anderson, who was struggling, but came back and showed real discipline. I know he'd worked on his game, and in fact he does a bit of work with Gary Palmer in Oxford, and Gary Palmer's sort of batting ethos is to stand a bit more open, so it goes a little bit away against the textbook tends to be a bit more of the side on setup. He likes players to be a little bit more open and believes that helps the balance, and certainly watching the way Shan played, I thought he did. He looked very balanced at the crease, played anything that was straight, and clearly had talked about, look, if it's not on off stump, leave it go, let them bowl at you, which is what he did. So, no, it was great all around, very pleased.
So the Gary Palmer method, yes, I've heard that name mentioned as one of your, he's a contemporary of yours, I guess.
Yes, no, I've done a bit of work with Gary.
So what would he and you have to say about the batting style of that of the returning Fawad Alam with a very, very unusual stance? Would you say that he was opening up to an absurd degree, or how did you see? What did you see? I mean, it wasn't in for very long.
Well, it wasn't in long enough to really sort of absorb it. I mean, he's a guy who's scored a huge number of runs in domestic cricket in Pakistan. Apparently has waited a long time to get his opportunity, and I think you've got to see more of him. I mean, we've only seen a few deliveries. It's really where you are when the ball's being released, and we talked about this before. I mean, you can sort of stand where you want, but the key is when the ball is coming out of the hand, are you in a position to allow yourself to get forward and back